Chapter 2240. Li Jianyue's face was full of surprise. Wow, that's great. Brother Mosen, you're so amazing. Li Mosen could clearly feel her admiration. The corners of his lips curled up. Are you happy that I'm so amazing? Yes. Li Jianyue's eyes lit up. She looked at Li Mosen and said enviously, if only I were half as smart as you and my brother. Li Mosen smiled. You're already half as smart as I am. If you're not smart enough, let me make up for it with my intelligence. Li Jianyue was a little depressed. But that's because you're smart, not because I'm smart. If I were as smart as you, I would definitely be better off than I am now. Look at Sister Pampan. She's so smart. Mom said that Sister Pampan inherited the intelligence of Uncle and Aunt Chungyu. That's why she's so outstanding. But I didn't inherit the intelligence of Mom and Dad. We're all born from the same parents. Why is my brother so smart? He thought that you and Daesu were twins and he sucked away all the nutrients in you. Li Mosen joked. When we get home, go beat him up. I'll help you beat him up until he's looking for his teeth all over the floor. Li Jianyue laughed out loud. Her eyes curved like crescent moons. She looked at Li Mosen and said, okay, then let's go back and do a mixed doubles later. Li Mosen smiled silently. He caressed her forehead and said, actually, you're very cute. Don't care what others say to you. Everyone has their own life. You're the little princess of our family. You don't have to be smart. You just have to be responsible for being cute and pretty. Li Jianyue felt happy when she heard that. She snorted lightly. That's right. I just have to be responsible for being cute and pretty. Yes. And then find a smart man to be your husband. Let him love and dote on you. Then you can live like this for the rest of your life. And live happily ever after. In fact, Mommy is a very smart and independent person. Brother Mosen, did you know? I heard from Aunt Chungyu that when Mommy and Daddy were still young, Daddy went missing for a few years. At that time, Mommy had just gotten pregnant and Daddy disappeared. Mommy was the one who raised me and brother. At that time, she had to take care of a company by herself. At that time, the company was also very powerful. Mommy was really amazing. But after Daddy came back, Mommy didn't even have to wear her own clothes. Daddy was the one who dressed her. Li Jianyue's eyes were full of envy and longing. Ever since I was young, Dad rarely dressed me. She thought for a moment and said, but I'm fine. Dad doesn't even dress my older brother. Li Mosen felt a little sad when he heard this. Li Mosen had heard a lot about what Su Qianxi had experienced in the past. He knew that all these nightmares and tragedies originated from his biological mother. If it weren't for his biological mother, Li Xiqing wouldn't have gone missing. Su Qianxi wouldn't have had to bear so much on her own. Moreover, at that time, no matter how difficult and sad Su Qianxi was, she still went against everyone's opinion and adopted him. Now that he had grown up, he should repay this kind woman. Li Mosen caressed Li Jianyue's forehead and asked softly, you won't in the future. You will only enjoy all the happiness that your mother enjoyed. Chapter 2241. Okay, I think so too. Mommy and Daddy both said that although I'm not as smart as you and Big Brother, my luck has always been the best since I was young. Ever since I was very young, I often won the lottery. Plus, I have the best daddy, the best mommy, the best grandpa, grandma, and Big Brother. As she spoke, her eyes turned into crescents. She looked up at Li Mosen and said, and you? Li Mosen's eyes turned into crescents. Li Mosen's heart suddenly felt as if it had been injected with a warm current. He couldn't help but smile and said, yeah. We're here. Uncle Yang stopped the car and pulled the handbrake. Li Jianyue immediately got up and hurriedly opened the car door and got out. When Li Mosen saw her jumping up and down with her school bag on her back, his heart that had been depressed for the whole day finally cleared up. Li Jianxian realized that Li Mosen seemed to be in a good mood that day. Even when he went out for a night run, he was smiling. Yu Chulin also noticed Li Mosen's strange behavior. He couldn't help but smile and say, hey Mosen. Li Mosen turned around and looked at Yu Chulin. The faint smile on his face, as well as his obvious good mood, made Yu Chulin recall the hostility Li Mosen had shown him previously. His smile deepened as he asked, do you want to play basketball? Sure. Li Mosen raised his eyebrows. Daesu, come along too. Li Jianxian was panting slightly from running. When he saw the intense atmosphere between them, he nodded his head. When Li Jianyue heard that they were going to play basketball after taking a shower, she ran out happily and squatted at the side to watch them. Su Qianxi and Li Xiqing also came out for a walk. At a glance, they saw the huge basketball court under the night sky. The three youths were sweating profusely and full of youthfulness. The smile on Su Qianxi's face was still gentle. She held her husband's arm and said, "The children have all grown up." Li Xiqing only showed a gentle expression beside his wife. When he saw how happy Su Qianxi was, the corners of his lips curled up slightly, and he said, "They've all grown up. We can rest assured in the future. When Daisa graduates, let's leave the company to him and travel around the world." Su Qianxi glanced at him, slightly dissatisfied, and said, "How old is Daisa now? Can't you let him play for another 2 years?" "How can that be? Children are meant to be used," Li Xiqing said seriously. "Other than Ursu and Moyun, everyone else can be used." Li Jianyue's ears were sharp. When she heard this, she immediately stood up from the ground and shouted, "Dad, how can you say that? I can use it too. Although I'm only in my first year of high school, I'll be interning in the company in my junior year." Although Li Ursu was not very smart, she had been the cutest since she was a child, and she looked the most similar to Su Qianxi. In addition to the debt he owed her when they were young, among the 3 children of Li Xiqing, he doted on her the most. Now that he heard his daughter being so sensible, he actually felt a little gratified and couldn't help but smile. "You've grown up." Li Jianyue took it as a compliment and replied proudly, "Of course." Su Qianxi couldn't help but laugh. "Speaking of which, Mosin is going to take the college entrance examination this year. Have you asked him which university he's going to?" Li Jianyue replied, "Yes, he said he wanted to get into Kingstown University." Kingstown University was also the best key university in Kingstown. However, this key university was only in Kingstown. Chapter 2242. Hearing her daughter's words, Su Qianxi was a little surprised. Although Kingstown University was not bad, Mosin was more interested in physics, and Kingstown University was more famous for its chemistry department. She once thought that even if Mosin did not want to go abroad, he would probably go to Tsinghua University, Capital University, Fudan University, or the University of Science and Technology. Ursa's answer was far beyond her expectations. Su Qianxi was a little puzzled and asked, "He told you that?" "Yeah." Li Jianyue did not think there was anything wrong with it. She tilted her head and said, "He said that this way, we don't have to live on campus, and he can send me to school on his bicycle every day. Hee." Seeing her daughter's silly look, Su Qianxi couldn't help but laugh. "So you asked your brother to stay?" "No." Li Jianyue squeezed between her parents and inserted her hands into Li Xiqing's and Su Qianxi's arms. She said coquettishly, "It's obvious that brother can't bear to leave me, okay? Where can he find such a cute and beautiful sister like me?" Su Qianxi laughed out loud. "Well, you've completely inherited your father's thick skin." Li Xiqing's eyes flashed for a moment, but when he heard his lover's words, he did not feel that he was being scolded. Instead, he said proudly, "That's good. This is the good quality of our Li family." Li Jianyue smiled and stayed in the middle of them. Looking at the 3 teenagers running on the basketball court, she shouted, "Go! Daddy and Mommy said they will take us for supper later." The 3 teenagers answered in unison, "Okay." Su Qianxi snorted and poked her daughter's nose. "Little rascal, what do you want to eat?" "Heideleo." The basketball game ended quickly, and the 6 of them drove to the 24-hour Heideleo hot pot restaurant. Before the dishes were served, Su Qianxi strictly controlled the quantity and warned them not to eat too much. But when the forecourt hot pot was served, she still couldn't control the teenagers' hands and accidentally exceeded their expectations. Seeing the dishes being served, Su Qianxi frowned and said, "Eat less, or you won't be able to sleep later." "It's okay, tomorrow is the weekend." Li Jianyue was very excited. As she spoke, she took out her phone and took a beautiful photo. Then she showed it to her brother, who was being strictly controlled by his grandparents in the old house. "Beautiful Buddhist girl, little son." Picture. Fatty Li Moyen colon. Beautiful Buddhist girl little son. Seduce, Fatty Li Moyen. Ah, how can you do this? I want to eat too. Beautiful Buddhist girl little son. Spinning. Come on, Li Moyen's stomach growled as he looked at the picture of the hot pot. Qin Shuhua happened to hear it and asked with concern. Is Moyen hungry? Grandma will make supper for you, okay? The white-haired Li Xiao heard this and snorted. No, he's already so fat. We can't let him have supper. Li Moyen was on the verge of tears and said pitifully, Grandfather, I'm really hungry. Li Xiao said mercilessly, You have to endure it even if you are hungry. Look at your body. Then, she looked at Qin Shuhua and said, It's all your fault. Look at how handsome he used to be. He looked like his father and mother at the same time. You fed him until he was deformed. Chapter 2243. Ding dong. Ding dong. Li Moyen lowered his head, and a bunch of pictures popped up. Buddhist beauty little son. Voice. Do you want to eat it? Come over. It's super delicious. There are 4 flavors. Tomato hot pot, 3 delicacies hot pot, butter hot pot, and seafood hot pot. The beef is so delicious. It's fragrant and tender. Other than Li Jianyue's voice, there were also the voices of his parents and the people around them. Gulp. Li Moyen swallowed his saliva. Qin Shuhua's heart ached for him. Eat a little. The child is used to it. If he doesn't eat, he'll be hungry at night. Li Moyen quickly nodded and looked at his grandfather pitifully. Li Xiao put on a straight face. Look at you. Are you really that hungry? Li Moyen continued to nod and muttered bitterly, I'm hungry. Li Xiao shook his head and said to Qin Shuhua, Give him a hardtack. No. Li Moyen screamed. Grandpa, I want to eat delicious food. Look at my sister. She's sending me delicious food. He pointed the phone at Li Xiao's face and shouted, Look, she's too much. Is she still your biological sister? Right at that moment, Li Jianyue sent another video over. In the video, Yu Chulin, Li Mosin, Li Jianqian, and Su Qianxi were all there. In the middle of the video, there was a steaming hot pot. One look, and you could tell that it was the ultimate luxurious dish. The last scene was Li Jianyue turning the camera to herself. She smacked her lips at the camera, and smacked her lips. Li Xiao smiled and said, Why is our Ursa so good-looking? Li Moyen was speechless. What kind of focus was that? Qin Shuhua also came over, and watched the video again. She smiled and said, Yes, Ursu is really good-looking. She's the prettiest among the 3 children. Li Xiao felt the same way and nodded. He looked at Li Moyen, and was even more disappointed. Look at what you're feeding him. Is he a pig? Li Maju was speechless. Li Xiao finally announced his death sentence. Give him a hardtack, and prepare vegetarian food for school on Monday. He's not allowed to eat meat for a month. Li Moyen cried sadly. Grandpa, why do you despise me so much? Am I an orphan? Grandma, I don't want to be a vegetarian. I don't want to eat hardtack. Qin Shuhua's heart ached for Li Moyen, but when she saw how fat Li Moyen was, she sighed and said, Hey, listen to your grandfather. Be good. Li Moyen was in despair. Under Li Xiao's angry glare, he held a piece of hardtack and a glass of water, and bitterly swallowed the food with tears in his eyes. He looked at the delicious food that Li Jianyue had sent on the screen with envy and jealousy. Qin Shuhua's heart ached, but when she saw the scene, she couldn't help but think it was funny. She took out her phone, and secretly recorded a short video to post on WeChat. When Li Jianyue saw it, she laughed out loud, and enthusiastically sent a video to Li Moyen. It was a live broadcast. Li Moyen cried out and roared with tears in his eyes. Get lost. On the other hand, the room burst into laughter. Li Moyen decisively hung up the phone and cried in his bed. Li Jianyue's evil plan had succeeded. She naturally put her chopsticks into Li Mosin's dipping sauce, and picked up a piece of meat that he had put down just a second ago. She happily put it into her mouth and smacked her lips. It's so delicious. Lazy bum, Li Mosin muttered. Chapter 2244. Li Jianrui didn't think there was anything wrong with it. She happily picked up Li Mosin's food with her chopsticks. Suddenly, Li Mosin threw a piece of tripe into the bowl. Li Jianrui said, Hey, I don't want to eat this. Li Mosin continued to heat the food. When he heard this, he deliberately said, "It's not for you." "Then don't put it here. It smells." "That's my bowl." Lee Mosin deliberately glanced at her. "Your bowl is over there." "Oh, what's yours is mine." "Yours is mine." Lee Jinrui smiled and added the tripe. She dipped it in the sauce and sent it to his mouth. Lee Mosin smiled and opened his mouth. He ate the tripe, and then put the freshly cooked food into the bowl. Lee Jinua's hands were nimble. She put the food in her mouth as fast as she could. Suddenly, she saw that the waiter had served her favorite shrimp paste. She immediately tugged at Lee Mosin and mumbled, "Brother Mosin, I want to eat that." Lee Jianxian couldn't stand it anymore. "You only care about yourself. Mosin hasn't eaten much. Didn't I just feed him a bite?" Lee Jianrui said righteously. "I saw him eat a few bites." Su Qianxi also looked at her daughter. "Don't bully your brother." "No." Lee Jianrui ate and picked up the meatballs in the bowl. "Brother Mosin likes to cook hot pot for me." He's not like that guy. He never cooks for me." "Fake brother." Lee Jianxian laughed. "You have the nerve to say that. Isn't it because you like to stick to Mosin? Think about it. Have you ever cared about me? That's because you don't care about me. Only Brother Mosin cares about me, so I don't care about you." Lee Jinrui said angrily. "Brother Mosin is the best. You are all bad. Mom, you eat too." Lee Jinrui scooped up a piece of freshly cooked shrimp paste and put it in Su Qianxi's bowl. "Brother Mosin is delicious." When Lee Mosin heard this, his blue eyes quietly deepened. "Brother Mosin is delicious." "Hey, speak clearly. What do you mean Brother Mosin is delicious?" Li Jianxian took advantage of the loophole in her words. Li Jianxian then realized what she had said and said confidently, "Brother Mosin's cooking is delicious. If you can cook for me, I will also say that your cooking is delicious." "Forget it." Li Jianxian waved his hand. "Then you continue to follow Mosin." Mosin don me." "Humph." Li Jianhua continued to eat happily. Li Mosin was obviously in a good mood as well. He said, "At least leave a few mouthfuls for me." "Yeah, I'm full." Li Jianhua drank a cup of sour plum juice and was satisfied. It's so delicious." Su Qianxi couldn't help smiling and said, "You only know how to bully your brother for being honest." Yu Chulin had been a man of few words from the beginning until the end. When he heard this, he subconsciously looked up at Li Mosin. Then he looked at Li Xiqing, who had also been silent. At this time, Li Xiqing was eating with his eyes down, putting everything in the bowl between him and Su Qianxi. His eyes were dark. No one knew what he was thinking. After supper, Li Jianrui accidentally ate too much. She dragged Li Mosin's arm and walked with difficulty. It's so uncomfortable. Chapter 2245. I don't want to go. I want to sleep. Li Jianhua cried and hugged Li Mosin's arm, looking aggrieved. Li Xiqing and Su Qianxi had already walked far away. Yu Chulin and Li Jianxian had always disliked them for being too slow, so they had long walked away. At this time, only Li Mosin and Li Jianhua were left behind. This was not the first time this scene had appeared, but every time, Li Mosin had a strange sense of happiness. Especially when the little girl acted coquettishly in front of him. The sense of satisfaction in his heart could not be replaced by anything. Under the streetlight, the little girl's fair and tender face was full of exhaustion. Li Mosin looked at her, and then at the few people in front of him. He pursed his lips and said, "Do you want to become like Moyin?" Li Jianhua whimpered and hugged Li Mosin's arm. She finally resigned herself to her fate and stood up. However, she still half collapsed on him and stumbled as she said, "If I had known, I wouldn't have eaten so much. It's all your fault. You cooked the food so well, and made the sauce so good. You caused me to accidentally eat too much." Ugh. Li Mosin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You're blaming me? It's your fault, it's your fault." Li Mosin was helpless. He looked down at her, his eyes full of love. "Then what about you? Next time, I'll have to work hard to keep an eye on you. I definitely can't let you eat too much." "Oh." Li Jianhua pursed her lips and said vaguely, "Up to you." He said the same last time. This time, he still cooked a lot for her to eat. Big liar. However, Li Jianhua felt that she was kind, so she definitely couldn't ruin his heroic words at this time. Otherwise he wouldn't cook next time. Li Jianyue thought that she had calculated it well. But in fact, Li Mosen had long noticed that her eyes were rolling around. Li Mosen saw that the smile in his eyes deepened. It was actually quite good to continue like this. Finally, they got on the car and reached home. Li Jianyue was no longer that tired on the way back. Now, she went back to her room happily. Li Mosen was about to go upstairs when he suddenly heard Su Qianxi call out. Mosen! Li Mosen stopped in his tracks and looked at Su Qianxi. He called out, Mom. Su Qianxi stood at the door of the hallway and said, Come to your father's study. Li Mosen felt inexplicably nervous. Ever since he was a kid, Li Xiqing had always been strict with him. This kind of strictness was different from the strictness he used on Li Jianxian and Li Jianyue. Although he would also be fierce and scold his children, and he would even hit them when they were disobedient to Li Jianxian. However, he had never concealed his love and tolerance for them. He would always be a little more patient with them. In the end, there was still a layer of separation between them. Li Mosen was well aware of this. Therefore, over the years, he had made his position very clear. He was not close to Li Xiqing, so Li Xiqing rarely asked him to go to his study. At this time, hearing Su Qianxi's words, Li Mosen's heart couldn't help but beat faster. Li Mosen nodded and followed Su Qianxi into Li Xiqing's study. Su Qianxi let him in and closed the door. Li Xiqing was sitting at the desk in the study, sorting out the paintings that Su Qianxi had drawn 2 days ago. Chapter 2246. Okay. Li Xiqing answered and carefully put the pile of paintings into the drawer. Sit down. I want to talk to you. Li Mosen became even more nervous. Such a scene had happened before, but without exception, every time it happened it felt different. This time, Li Xiqing seemed to be a little serious, making it impossible not to tense up and treat him seriously. Li Mosen sat down on the chair in front of Li Xiqing's table. His posture was standard and his back was straight. Li Xiqing knew that he had become used to it, so he didn't care and said, I heard that you want to get into Kingstown University? Li Mosen had told Li Jianyue about this before, so he wasn't surprised that he knew. He nodded calmly and said, Yes, Dad. I want to get into Kingstown University and stay in Kingstown. You should know that with your qualifications and talent, staying in Kingstown University is a bit of a waste. Li Xiqing looked at him with his sharp eyes. Li Mosen couldn't help but straighten his back and said, I don't want to leave Kingstown. Why? Because I grew up in Kingstown. I can't bear to leave. Li Xiqing listened to this and didn't say anything. Just then, Su Qianxi made a few cups of calming tea and brought them over. Inexplicably, she felt that the way this father and son interacted was a bit stiff. She quietly brought the tea over and sat next to Li Xiqing, waiting for them to continue the conversation. Qianqian, Li Xiqing suddenly said, help me close the door. Su Qianxi felt that something was wrong, but she still went to close the door. The moment the door was closed, she heard Li Xiqing's voice. Do you not want to leave Kingstown? Or do you not want to leave Ursu? Li Mosen's heart suddenly felt like it was being fiercely grabbed by something. In just a moment, Li Mosen's back was already covered with a thin layer of sweat. And Su Qianxi was so smart that she immediately understood what he was implying. Her heart was beating fast, and she immediately turned around and looked at Li Xiqing in disbelief. At this moment, Li Xiqing's eyes were sharp as he stared at Li Mosen. The aura of being in a high position for many years was completely revealed at this moment. Even she herself could not quite withstand such coercion. What's more, Mosen was just a child. At this moment, Li Mosen was looking at Li Xiqing in shock. He quickly lowered his eyes to hide his panic and asked, Dad, is there anything different? Li Mosen lowered his blue eyes and clenched his fists. But he knew that he looked too guilty now. Under the pressure of Li Xiqing, the secret that she had kept in her heart for so many years had nowhere to hide. She frowned, walked over to him, and patted him on the shoulder. Li Xiqing then calmed down a bit. Li Mosen finally felt that he had some breathing space, but at this time, the palms of his hands and the back of his back were already oozing sweat, and even his forehead had completely exposed his nervousness. He knew that he was finished. Sure enough, he heard Li Xiqing say, You knew since you were young that you were not Ursa's biological brother, right? Mosen pursed his lips. Of course he knew. He had known since he was young. Everyone around him was reminding him that he was not Li Xiqing's biological child. He was just a product of a woman who had committed the most heinous crime and messed around in a foreign country. Chapter 2247. It was for the sake of living a good life in this family. He wanted to integrate into this family and become a real member of this family. He didn't dare to reveal his thoughts about Li Jianyue, for fear that Li Xiqing would drive him away and separate him from Ersu. Li Mosen had been safe and sound for so many years. He didn't expect to be discovered by Li Xiqing at this time. Li Mosen's heart was beating extremely fast. In his memory, he had only felt such fear when he was 5 or 6 years old, when he was held hostage by that crazy woman, Tang Minjing, and his life was hanging by a thread. At this time, such emotions once again shrouded his heart, making it difficult for him to adapt. Li Xiqing saw that he didn't speak, and already had an answer in his heart. He said meaningfully, "Mosen." Li Mosen grabbed his thigh with both hands, and his heart was already clear. Li Xiqing knew. He knew everything. How could a smart person like Li Xiqing not be able to guess? Li Mosen's heart was filled with despair. But when he heard Li Xiqing's voice, he simply raised his head and said, "Dad, I do know that I am not your biological child, so I don't want to leave Kingstown." "I didn't ask you to leave," Li Xiqing interrupted him. "I just think that you should have a more suitable choice. Go abroad, or go to a better university in the country. You can choose. Staying in Kingstown will only waste your talent." "No, Mosen," Su Qianxi said in a gentle voice. "Listen to your father." Li Mosen was silent, but on his fair skin, his Adam's apple had already moved up and down a few times. Li Xiqing continued, "You are too close to Ersu. Maybe even you don't know what your feelings for her are. I suggest you go abroad for a few years to calm down." Li Mosen panicked and said, "No, Dad, I only have feelings for Ersu like a brother and sister." "You are not." Li Xiqing's eyes were like an eagle, firmly grasping him, as if he could see through his internal organs. All his secrets had been seen through by him. She frowned and said, "Ersu has been relying on Mosen since she was young, and Mosen is used to Ersu's pampering. Their relationship is indeed better. But they grew up together, so it's only right that they have a good relationship. What do you think?" "Yes, we should have a good relationship, but there's something wrong with the look in his eyes," Li Xiqing said with certainty. His voice gradually became stern. "Mosen, Ersu only sees you as her brother. She's still very innocent now. She doesn't know anything, so she can't understand the emotions in your eyes." As he spoke, he stood up and quietly approached her. "I'm a man. Of course I know what you mean when you look at her." That wasn't the way an older brother looked at his younger sister. Instead, it was the way a man would look at a woman he adored. He was an experienced person, so he naturally knew what was going on. Li Mosen was indeed outstanding, smart, well-behaved, hardworking and eager to learn. But even so, she was not good enough for Li Xiqing's only daughter. Li Mosen panicked and sat on the chair, as if his soul had been sucked out of him. After all, he was the child that he had raised. Seeing Li Mosen like this, Li Xiqing's eyes softened. He said meaningfully, "Mosen, you are still young and outstanding enough. Dad will recommend you to a professor at New York Business School. I'll give you a few years to calm down. Mosen is the older brother. Are you sure you want Mosen to be with Ersu? Are you sure?" Chapter 2248. New York Business School. "I'll give you a few years, calm down." Every word echoed in Li Mosen's mind several times. The echo shook him to the brink of collapse. Li Mosen stood up abruptly and shouted, I don't want to go, Dad. I want to stay in Kingstown." "It would be a waste of your talent to stay in Kingstown." Li Xiqing's eyes turned cold again. He looked at Li Mosen in front of him and said coldly, "You are very talented in physics. You can choose an excellent physics school, or you can go directly to my alma mater. I will arrange the best education for you." Li Mosen wanted to say something, but then Su Qianxi came forward and gently held him. Her voice was soft and comforting as she said, "Mosen, your father is doing this for your own good. Calm down first." There was a moment of silence. Then, Li Mosen's voice was almost cold and emotionless. It was eerily calm. He asked, "For my own good?" His voice was cold and very stiff. Su Qianxi was shocked by Li Mosen's behavior. She held him and stood beside him. She didn't know when this child had grown up, even to the point where she needed to look up to him. Su Qianxi was slightly shocked. She reached out and gently comforted him. "Yes, Mosen, Dad and Mom are doing this for your own good. Your father just doesn't want your talent to be buried. Don't give him excuses." Li Mosen gently pushed Su Qianxi away and looked at Li Xiqing coldly. "Do you not want me to be buried? Or do you not want your daughter to be coveted by the son of your enemy?" Li Xiqing's face suddenly darkened. "What did you say?" Li Mosen met Li Xiqing's eyes and instinctively lowered his eyes. But in the next moment, Li Mosen realized what he was doing. He was slightly startled. He lowered his head and clenched his fists. He said in a low voice, "I know who my biological mother is. I know that woman destroyed your family back then. Since I was a child, people around me have always reminded me that I can have everything I have today because of my mother's kindness. I can stand here because my mother saved my life twice from that woman." Li Mosen suddenly laughed sarcastically. He looked at the intricate carpet under his feet and said in a low voice, "I've been your son for so many years. Now, I don't want to be your son now, Dad." But before he said anything, Su Qianxi covered his mouth. Su Qianxi's hands had a faint aroma of tea, mixed with her unique scent, forming a mother's scent. Li Mosen's eyes trembled, and he lowered his head to meet Su Qianxi's gaze. Su Qianxi was now 40 years old, but the years still left no trace on her face. Her face was 80% similar to Li Jinyue's. Su Qianxi's eyes were a little watery. With a little fear, she shouted at him, "Mosen!" Calling his name, she burst into tears. Li Mosen was shocked. It was only then that he realized how hurtful his words were. Li Xiqing's masseter muscles were twisted. He quickly walked over and pulled Su Qianxi over. Looking at the young man in front of him, who was already comparable to his height, Li Xiqing said in a slow voice, "Continue." Su Qianxi's voice was already trembling. "Mosen, whether it is in the past or now to us, you are no different from Desu and Ursu." Chapter 2249. Su Qianxi's voice was a little loud, and it poured into Li Mosen's ears. He was stunned and then fell silent. Li Xiqing looked at the child in front of him, who he had raised with his own hands, and narrowed his eyes. "What? Are you done?" Li Mosen pursed his lips and clenched his fists. He nodded at Li Xiqing. "I'm done." Li Xiqing reached out and patted Su Qianxi beside him. He said word by word, "Since you're done, go back to sleep." Li Mosen clenched his fists even tighter. He bowed slightly to them and turned to leave. Just at the moment when he turned the door handle, Su Qianxi stopped him. "Mosen." Li Mosen paused. Su Qianxi suddenly felt a little sad and whispered, "No one doesn't want their child to be good. You are our child. What your father just said to you is the best plan. You are too young now and don't know what you want. What you need most now is not our affirmation but calmness. After a period of time, you will think through a lot of things." Li Mosen listened to this and paused. He finally turned the door handle and took a step forward. It was not. They did not know what he wanted at all. He liked Ursu, not because he was impulsive. Ever since he was young, he was well aware of his own background. Therefore, he wanted to repay the favor by doing something that he could do within his abilities. But he did not know when he started to be obsessed with this feeling of being needed. The innocent and lovely Ursu always looked at him with her round eyes and smiled. She called him obediently and cutely, Brother Mosen, I want this. Brother Mosen is the best. Brother Mosen is of course the best person. I like Brother Mosen the most." Mosen walked up the stairs absent-mindedly. When he thought of Ursa's face, the gloominess on his face lessened slightly. Even his gaze softened. And at this moment, there was a slight sound of the door opening upstairs. Li Jinrui's little head popped out. When she saw Li Mosen, she blinked and said, "Brother Mosen, what's wrong? Why did Dad ask you to go?" When Li Mosen saw Li Jinyue's innocent and adorable face, the gloomy look on his face disappeared the moment he saw her. He walked up to her and gently pressed her head. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" Although Li Jinyue was clumsy and her reaction was a little slow, at this moment, She could also sense Mosen's unhappiness. What's wrong? Did Daddy scold you? Li Mosen's gaze softened. He looked at her and nudged her. Let's go in first. Let's talk inside. Li Jianyue quickly jumped back, and then opened the door to let him in. When Li Mosen came in, he wanted to close the door, but in the next moment, a wave of bitterness poured into his heart. After hesitating for a moment, he opened the door and walked in. On the other hand, Li Jianyue was a little surprised. Hey, why didn't you close the door? As he spoke, he walked up and closed the door behind him. Then he turned around and jumped back to his bed. What's wrong? What do you want to talk to me about? The soft little mattress trembled as she sat down. It looks soft. Li Mosen said. If I go abroad, will you miss me? Chapter 2250. Li Jianyue's big eyes were filled with questions. She looked at him and realized that Li Mosen had an indescribable feeling today. There was an indescribable emotion in his deep gaze. Li Jianyue's heart felt slightly lifted. She was actually a little nervous. Is that so? Li Mosen did not answer. Instead, he asked, Do you want me to go abroad? Do you want me to go abroad? Do you want me to? Perhaps even Li Mosen himself did not realize that at this moment, his hand was already on his knee. A pair of eyes were staring straight at Li Jianyue. The anticipation in his eyes had almost turned into desire, forcing her to give him the answer that he longed for deeply in his heart. Li Jianyue also noticed that there was something wrong with Li Mosen's gaze, but she was not afraid. Instead, she tilted her head and said, I don't want you to go abroad, but I know that with Brother Mosen's intelligence and ability, you can definitely stand higher and further. A small Kingstown can't restrict you. Li Mosen had originally thought that with Li Jianyue's usual temperament, she would only say yes or no. However, the words that came after were exactly the same as what Li Xiqing had said. Li Mosen did not know what he was feeling at this moment. He looked at her and quietly loosened his fists. Suddenly he clenched them tightly. Looking at her, his gaze unconsciously deepened. He asked softly, So, do you also think that I should leave? Li Jianyue noticed Mosen's unhappiness and immediately shook her head. She said, This is not leaving. How can this be considered as leaving? You see, brother has been studying in the capital for so many years. But in my heart, brother will always be brother. Although he went to the north to study, which is very far away from me, I also know that the education in Kingstown is not as good as that in the capital. Even the best school is unable to develop brother's talent. That's why Dad and Mom sent brother to the capital back then. No, they just want Daesu to spend more time with your grandparents. Li Mosen's tone was very firm, and he believed it without a doubt. No, it's not what you think. It's one thing for Grandpa and Grandma to want someone to accompany them. That's just one factor. But Dad's biggest plan is to give brother the best education. Look, if Dad and Mom hadn't sent brother to Kingstown back then, he wouldn't have become the youngest master's student in the world of scientific research. Now the best scientific research in the country is in Kingstown. That's why Dad let brother and brother Chu come back to study. Li Mosen had never thought of this, nor had he heard anyone mention it. He had thought many times that Yu Chulin and Li Jianxian were homesick and wanted to stay in Kingstown. That was why they had used the best excuse to come back to Kingstown for scientific research. Li Xiqing just acquiesced. But now Li Jianyue told him that in fact, Li Xiqing and Su Qianxi had already arranged everything tacitly. Li Mosen recalled that when he was very young, Li Xiqing had asked him more than once, What do you want to do when you grow up? At that time, Li Mosen was still young, and his answer was different every time. Sometimes his answer was that he wanted to be a scientist because scientists were great. Sometimes his answer was that he wanted to be a doctor because he didn't want illness to torture humans. Later, Li Mosen asked him again, What do you want to do when you grow up? Chapter 2251. In fact, Li Mosen was also crying directly. At that time, old Master Li Sun had just passed away. Li Mosen quickly wiped his tears and sobbed, I want to be a god, so that I can protect the people I want to protect. I won't let death take away the people I care about. At that time, Li Xiqing looked at him quietly for a while, but did not say anything. He only hugged him in his arms and patted him silently. Lee Mosin could not stop his tears at that time. And his heart was even more sad. They were finally going to drive him away, weren't they? After all, he was the son of the enemy, and they were not as close to him as they were to their own children. In this family, other than Su Qianxi, only Grandpa Li Sun loved him the most. Now that Grandpa Li Sun had passed away, and Su Qianxi did not have her own opinions. Li Xiqing had been harmed so badly by Tang Minjing. How could he allow the son of such a person to be by his side? He was afraid that it was premeditated to get rid of him. But because everyone knew that they had adopted him, it was reasonable for them to be responsible for his future. That was why they kept asking him what he wanted to do in the future. It was convenient. They could give him a good path for his future now, and then they could get rid of him openly. The more Lee Mosin thought about it, the sadder he became. Finally, on that quiet night, he cried his heart out. Fortunately, from then on, Li Xiqing never asked him again. Lee Mosin did not know if Li Xiqing knew what he was thinking, but from then on, he subconsciously stayed away from him. Although he called him Dad, his heart was gradually drifting away. Perhaps Li Xiqing also noticed it. So he cooperated and stopped asking about Li Xiqing's life and future aspirations. Lee Mosin finally felt relieved. From then on, his world was subconsciously only Su Qianxi and Li Ersu. Su Qianxi was gentle and kind, and Li Jianyue was pure and innocent. He had long decided to protect these two women to the end. But he never expected that Li Jianyue would say such a thing. Could it be that he had misunderstood Li Xiqing? Lee Mosin knew that Li Jianyue was not a person who would lie, so he asked, "Did Dad ask you to say these words? Why did Dad tell me all this? I heard this from Grandma and Grandpa. In the past, I couldn't bear for brother to go to school. Grandpa hugged me and explained it to me. Only then did I know that Dad and Mom sent brother to school in the capital for his own good. Accompanying Grandma and Grandpa was also one of their goals. But more importantly, they wanted brother to stand out." Li Jianyue was baffled. Lee Mosin pursed his lips and asked softly, "Did Dad just call me to the study?" "I know." And then, Li Jianyue realized that Lee Mosin's repressed emotions seemed to have loosened. She was elated and asked, "Did he let you go abroad?" "Yes, he wants me to go to New York Business School." "Wow!" Li Jianyue exclaimed. "That's Dad's alma mater. Daddy really likes that place. A while ago, Big Brother said that he wanted to go there to study, but Daddy said that he was not suitable and wouldn't let Big Brother go." Lee Mosin's face was full of doubt. "Really?" Chapter 2252. Lee Mosin looked at Li Jianyue's serious expression and pursed his lips. "Was that what he said?" "Who? Dad?" Li Jianyue looked at him and nodded. "Yes, it was Dad who said it. Mom said that although Brother Mosin is smart, his personality isn't as cheerful as mine. She asked me to spend more time with you, and then take you out to have fun." Li Jianyue walked over to Lee Mosin and said, "Mom said that although Brother Mosin is smart, his personality isn't as cheerful as mine." Lee Mosin paused for a moment and stood rooted to the ground. Li Jianyue stood in front of him and pinched his nose with 2 fingers. She said, "You can't do without me at all. Look at how long I haven't looked at you. And you're already so unhappy." "Humph." Lee Mosin's nose was pinched. At this moment his heart was itching. Just as Li Jianyue's hand was about to leave, he finally couldn't help but reach out and grab her small hand. Li Jianyue was stunned. The next second her body felt light. Li Jianyue exclaimed out of habit. The next moment, she was already in Lee Mosin's arms. Li Jianyue was pressed on his shoulder. She could clearly smell the smell of hot pot on his body. Li Jianyue blinked and turned to look at him. Lee Mosin also turned his head slightly. The two of them faced each other, less than half a fist apart. At such a close distance, Lee Mosin's nose was filled with the fresh fragrance of her body after she had bathed. Lee Mosin unconsciously sniffed. The fragrance seemed to drill into his heart. While it made him feel relaxed and happy, he couldn't help but feel restless. Lee Mosin's heartbeat sped up unconsciously. Looking at her pink cheeks and bright eyes, he felt as if his heart had been melted by her. Her ignorance and innocence made him feel as if his heart had been melted by her. Li Jianyue seemed to have seen something novel, and moved closer to Lee Mosin. Li Mosen's face turned red from his face to his ears. Even the bottom of his neck felt hot. His nerves seemed to be stretched taut. When Li Jianyue approached him, his body was so stiff that he didn't dare to move. Li Jianyue didn't notice Li Mosen's stiffness at all. Her eyes were attracted to the novelty she had discovered. Li Jianyue stopped less than 2 centimeters in front of him. She suddenly reached out and touched his eyebrow. "Brother Mosen, why do you have a mole on your eyebrow?" Li Mosen only felt her fingers touching his face softly. That soft touch made his heart palpitate. Li Mosen had never been so nervous before. For the first time, he didn't know what to do in front of his sister, whom he had been with for more than 10 years. Meeting her gaze, Li Mosen suppressed the nervousness in his heart and said softly, "I've had it for a long time. It was just like liking you." He didn't know when it started to appear, but one day, he suddenly realized its existence. "Wow, I've been with you every day, but I didn't notice," Li Jianyue said with a curious expression. "It's all because your eyebrows are too thick. I can only see them when I'm so close." Li Mosen looked at her red lips, and his throat tightened. Then, he pushed her away unnaturally. "It means that you don't care about me." Chapter 2253. Li Mosen smiled and reached out to touch her little nose. "You only know how to quibble. If you didn't find it, then you didn't find it. There is no if." "But didn't I find it now?" Li Jianyue said confidently. And I saw it very clearly." During the conversation, even Li Jianyue herself did not realize that the distance between them was getting closer and closer. Li Mosen was a little stiff. He subconsciously raised his hand and gently hugged her. "Ursu." "Yes." Li Jianyue did not feel anything wrong. "You knock knock." There was a knock on the door. Li Mosen almost reflexively let go of her. And Li Jianyue did not notice the speed of Li Mosen's movement. She turned to look at the door, then stood up straight and walked toward the door. She asked, "Who is it?" "Open the door." It was Li Jinxian's voice. Li Jianyue opened the door and said with a strange face, "Oh, it's rare that my brother would come to my small room." Li Jinxian had already taken a shower and was wearing dark blue pajamas. His short black hair was half dry, and his phoenix eyes were the same as Li Xiqing's. He looked a little lazy. He looked at his sister in front of him, who was like a child for 10 years. He did not know what expression he had on his face, and looked inside. Li Mosen had already walked out. When he saw it was Li Jinxian, he just looked away. Everyone was too familiar with each other, and they were used to all kinds of eye contact. Unexpectedly, Li Jinxian was actually looking for Li Mosen. "Mosen, come to my room." When she heard this, Li Jianyue was unhappy. She put her hands on her hips and puffed out her chest. She looked fierce and shouted, "Hey, why did you come to my room to look for Brother Mosen? Can't you look for your beautiful, lovely, and kind sister?" "I only have one sister. She doesn't have the description you said," Li Jinxian said with a face full of disgust. He reached out and gently pushed her away. "Get out of the way." Li Jianyue stood in front of Mosen angrily. "Don't go. Brother doesn't know how to talk at all. I won't let him go." Okay, you are naive, you are cute, go away." "Li Desu." Li Jinxian glanced at Mosen, and then turned to leave. Li Mosen gently placed his hand on Li Jianyue's shoulder and quickly said, "I'll go for a while." Li Jianyue was furious, but she also knew that if Li Jinxian had nothing to do, he would not come to her room to look for Mosen. But what could it be? Li Jianyue's eyes darted around as she quietly followed behind them. As for Li Jinxian, when he brought Li Mosen into his room, he inadvertently raised his head and found Li Jianyue, who was trying to eavesdrop. Without batting an eyelid, Li Jinxian said, "Mosen, you go in first." Of course, Li Mosen also knew that Li Jianyue was behind them. He couldn't help but smile when he saw the little head that was trying hard to hide in the corner, but still revealed some clues. Before Li Jinxian entered the door, he said in a voice that was neither too loud nor too soft, "It seems that Granny Rong made some sweet water and left it in the kitchen. Let's go have some later." Li Jianyue's ears twitched. Sugar water? Just as she was wondering when Granny Rong made the sugar water, the next moment, she heard the sound of Li Jinxian closing the door. Not only did he close the door, he actually locked it. Chapter 2254. When she reached the kitchen, Li Jianyue realized that she had been tricked by Li Jianxian. Li Jianyue stomped her feet in anger, but there was nothing she could do. On the other side, Li Jianxian closed the door and turned to look at Mosen. What did Dad say to you when he asked you to go to the study? About college? Li Jianxian nodded as if he had expected it. I knew that Dad wouldn't allow you to go to Kingstown University. I guess Dad would ask you to go to Capital University or New York University. He wants me to go to New York Business School. That's within my expectations. Li Jianxian's face was full of relief. Because I've already made it clear to Dad that I don't want to go home to do business. I just want to study hard and develop in my current professional field. When did you tell Dad? I told him a long time ago. Maybe 2 years ago? 3 years ago? What reaction did he have? Li Jianxian shrugged. What reaction? He didn't have any reaction at all. Li Mosen found it a little hard to believe. What kind of reaction is that? He just said, I got it. And that was it. Li Mosen frowned. Li Xiqing was different from others. The Li Corporation was a huge enterprise, and it was all built by Li Xiqing alone. Other than the 4 years when he was away, there was absolutely no one else to make it what it was now. But now, Li Xiqing did not force Li Jianxian to learn business, but instead asked the son of his enemy to learn it. What did that mean? Li Mosen's heart beat faster, and the ideas in his mind became more and more daring. Could it be that Li Xiqing wanted him to inherit the family business? This idea that Li Mosen had never even dared to think about popped up here. It was simply crazy. Li Mosen suppressed the terrible speculation in his heart and looked at Li Jianxian. What does he mean? Can't you tell what he means? Li Jianxian laughed. He told me to study hard and to develop in my own field. The family business is a small matter. He can still manage it now. When he can't manage it anymore, there will always be someone who can take over. After a pause, Li Jianxian saw the disbelief on Li Mosen's face and teased. Anyway, he wants you to learn business. You are also his son, so there's nothing wrong with letting you learn business, right? I'm just a foster son. An adopted son is still a son. Li Jianxian patted him on the shoulder. Keep it up. It's not easy for Dad to get to where he is today. Don't let it fall in your hands in the future. Li Mosen was quiet for a moment, and his mood was a little complicated. This complicated feeling lasted for a long time. When he returned to his room, washed up, and went to bed, his head was full of what Li Jianxian had just said. Did he really think so? Li Mosen didn't really want these things. He just felt that such a huge family business should be inherited by his own son. He shouldn't pin his hopes on an adopted son. Moreover, this adopted son was the son of his enemy, a bastard whose biological father was unknown. Li Mosen stared at the ceiling in the dark. He didn't know how long it had been, but he still didn't feel sleepy. When he woke up the next day, the dark circles under his eyes were particularly obvious on his fair face. Chapter 2255. Li Jianrui was a little surprised. She looked at Li Mosen and asked, Brother Mosen, did you steal last night? Li Mosen coughed softly and turned his face away. Go and eat. Li Jianrui saw him like this and immediately leaned over. Ah, is it because Daddy scolded you last night that you couldn't sleep? Li Mosen looked down at her. Li Jianrui looked sympathetic. Don't be sad. Daddy scolded you for your own good. Daddy doesn't usually scold people. Look, Daddy has never scolded me. That's because you're too stupid. There's no use scolding you. Li Jianxian's melodious voice sounded with a hint of mockery. Are you proud of yourself? Li Jianrui puffed up her cheeks and said angrily. No way. Are you jealous? I'm not. Li Jianxian walked over and lifted his hand to clamp Li Jianrui under his armpit. Let's go eat. Hey, let go. You smell like a fox. I'll squash you if you spout nonsense again. I'm not spouting nonsense. Smell it yourself. Li Jianxian laughed angrily and pressed her head further under his armpit. Help me smell it. Wretch! Li Jianrui pretended to vomit, but she still couldn't escape the situation of being carried by Li Jianxian. The 17-year-old Li Jianxian was more than 1. 7 meters tall. Coupled with his regular exercise, it was effortless for him to carry the petite Li Jianrui. In the end, Li Jianxian ended up at the dining table. When she turned around and saw Yu Chulin walking over slowly, she shouted, "Brother Chu, quickly control my brother. He's starting to bully me again." Yu Chulin sat down casually and chuckled. "Really? Why didn't I see it? Sob sob sob, you're in cahoots. You're all bullying me." Li Jianrui cried. When she saw Li Mosin walking over from behind, she said, "Brother Mosin, sob sob." Li Mosin's lips curled up. He reached out and tapped her nose. "All right, with your acting skills, you can be an actress. Where do you want to go later?" Li Jianrui tilted her head and suddenly thought of a place. "Let's go to the amusement park we went to last time, okay?" "Amusement park?" "Yeah, it's the one with the Ferris wheel, and the one with the Kumamon bear selling rabbit ears." Li Jinyue's eyes sparkled. "We went there in the evening. Wouldn't it be more fun during the day?" Li Mosin frowned. Of course, he knew that place. He also remembered the Kumamon bear that sold rabbit ears the last time he saw it. However, the way that the Kumamon bear looked at them did not seem normal. It was as if he had other emotions, as if he knew them. Li Mosin didn't like that feeling very much. However, seeing that Li Jianyue was so interested, Li Mosin couldn't bear to reject her. After hesitating for a moment, he suggested, "I know a similar place. Shall we go somewhere else?" Li Jianyue shook her head. "I think that place is very good. It's close to home, and we can eat hot pot. When we're done, we can go and eat hot pot." Speaking of hot pot, Li Jianyue was almost drooling. Unlike the rest of the family, Li Jianyue really liked eating hot pot. She was almost obsessed with it. In addition, there was also ice cream and all kinds of fried snacks. She liked all of them very much. Chapter 2256. Of course not. He was fed by Grandpa and Grandma. I didn't ask them to feed him. Granny Rong's cooking is nutritionally balanced. Nanny Rong, who was busy at the side, smiled when she heard Li Jianyue's words. She was very pleased. She had been in the Li family for so many years, and had long regarded these children as her own grandchildren. Nanny Rong was naturally very happy to be praised by them. However, she still said, "Let's talk about this here. Don't say things like that in front of Moyin. Otherwise he will be in a bad mood. Granny Rong, we have to talk to him more so that he can actively lose weight. Otherwise, if he continues to gain weight like this, he will be ruined," Li Jianyue said firmly. Just as they were talking, the doorbell rang. Nanny Rong quickly went to open the door. It was Li Moyin. Li Moyin's expression was a little tragic at this time. He moved his fat body in, and opened his hands to the sky. He shouted loudly, "I Li Hansan am back again." "Hey, who is Li Hansan?" Li Jianyue turned to look at Li Mosin while eating breakfast. "I don't know Li Hansan." "Brother Mosin, quickly chase him away." "Hey," Li Moyin said angrily. "Li Ersu, don't go too far. I haven't settled the score with you for live streaming hot pot last night." "What score?" "I just felt sorry for you at home, so I wanted to share it with you," Li Moyin said angrily. "You still dare to say that? I was hungry all night because of you. Look at my dark circles, dark circles." Li Moyin pried his eyelids open and moved closer to her. "How pitiful. Such dark circles are all your fault. Wow, you really have dark circles. But if you were hungry, wouldn't you have asked Grandpa and Grandma to cook for you? You still dare to say that?" Li Moyin was about to cry. "It's all because of you. Grandpa and Grandma started to think that I was fat when they saw how thin you were. They said that I was like a pig and forced me to lose weight. From now on, I'm not allowed to have meat for lunch. I can only eat vegetables every day. What have I done?" "Then you were hungry all night?" Yu Chulin suddenly asked. Li Moyin felt even worse. "I was so hungry that I couldn't take it anymore. So Grandpa gave me a piece of hardtack." "Ha ha 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 ha." Li Jianyue laughed out loud. "This is too tragic. Ha 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 ha." The corners of Li Mosin's lips curled up. Li Jianxian replied, "It's only right. Grandpa and Grandma were right. Given your physique, if you continue to gain weight, it'll be difficult to lose weight in the future. It's hard to reduce it now." That's true. Li Moyin felt that the whole world was against him. He sat down at the dining table dejectedly. Was it his fault that he was fat? Did he want to be fat? He didn't want to, okay. It was his grandparents who had fed him to make him fat. But in the end, he was despised by them. The more Li Moyen thought about it, the more aggrieved he felt. He grabbed a piece of bread and started munching on it. However, Yu Chulin grabbed her hand before she could bite him. Li Moyen was stunned for a moment. However, Yu Chulin had a teasing look on his face as he asked with a smile. Didn't you eat before you came? Of course Li Moyen ate it. However, he only ate 2 steamed buns, a cup of soy milk, and a fried dough stick. It wasn't even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. Although he wasn't hungry at the moment, he was sure that his stomach would be growling in less than an hour. Chapter 2257. How is that possible? Grandma wouldn't have let him out if he hadn't eaten. Brother Chu, he's lying to you, Li Jianhua shouted from behind. Yu Chulin looked at Li Moyen's expression and removed his hand. Aren't we going out to play later? Don't fill your stomach after eating. Let's go to the buffet later. Li Moyen's eyes lit up, and he quickly nodded his head. He retracted his hand and said honestly, Actually, I've already eaten. I'll go on an empty stomach, so that I can eat more when we go to the buffet later. Haha. Yu Chulin smiled faintly. Li Jianqian reached out and patted his shoulder gently. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. After breakfast, Li Moyen eagerly caught up with Li Jianhua and Li Mosen. However, when he turned around, he realized that Li Jianqian and Yu Chulin were not with him. He asked Li Mosen in confusion, Where are Brother Chu and second brother? The eldest brother was Li Mosen, so the second brother was naturally Li Jianqian. Li Mosen looked at him and answered honestly, I don't know. Li Moyen felt that something was wrong. Didn't you say that you were going to the buffet together? Did we? Li Mosen looked at him with a faint smile. Ursu and I were going to play. Chu and Desu are the ones going to the buffet. Did you hear wrongly? Li Moyen was stunned. Wait, what? You're not going together? Who told you that? Li Jianhua laughed. Let's go. I'll take you out to play. Hey, I don't want to. I want to go to the buffet. Your buffet is long gone. Li Mosen looked at him sympathetically. It seems that Desu and Chu are going to visit a professor's house today. They even brought gifts. They might have lunch at the professor's house. If it's a buffet, it'll be at least in the evening. Li Moyen's heart was filled with anger at being deceived. He shouted, That's too much. I didn't expect Brother Chu to be such a person. Ursu, let's go. What did you call me? Li Jianhua raised her eyebrows and put on airs. When Li Moyen saw this, he immediately smiled apologetically and said, Sister, my dear sister, where are you planning to go? Li Jianhua enjoyed the feeling of being called sister. Although Li Moyen often thought that she was stupid and didn't want to call her sister at all. But now that he was called out, he felt light in his heart. He said proudly, To the amusement park. Li Moyen was a little disappointed. Why is it an amusement park again? Aren't you sick of going there every day? I don't go every day. I rarely go, okay? Li Jianhua reached out and patted him. Are you going? Go. The three siblings soon arrived at the amusement park that Li Jianhua had been longing for. The amusement park had been quietly renovated. Compared to the last time Li Jianhua saw it, some places seemed to have changed. There were many more dolls around. In addition to the Kumaman, there was also a Pikachu, Whitey, and a giant doll that Li Jianhua had seen before but couldn't name. Because it was the weekend, there were many children around. They surrounded the big dolls, holding lollipops and ice cream in their hands. They chased each other and laughed happily. Almost subconsciously, Li Jianhua's eyes fell on the Kumaman as soon as she entered. Chapter 2258. Li Jianhua looked at the big stupid bear and blinked her eyes. She wanted to go forward to greet it, but she was afraid of mistaking it for someone else. Li Mosen noticed her gaze, and his eyes darkened. He put his hand on her shoulder and asked, What are you looking at? I'm looking for. Li Moyen suddenly shouted from behind, I want to eat ice cream. No, it's the easiest to put on weight. Li Jianhua nudged Li Mosen and said, Hurry up and pull Moyen back. If he continues to eat, he will become fat. Li Mosen raised his hand and put it around her neck. Then he walked towards the chubby Li Moyin and said, "You can eat it later. We just finished dinner. How are you going to eat the buffet if you eat ice cream now?" When Li Moyin heard the word buffet, he suddenly became energetic and said, "Buffet!" Li Jianyue blinked her eyes. If it was a buffet, wouldn't Li Moyin eat even more? How could he lose weight if he continued to eat like this? But then, Li Jianyue received a look from Li Mosin. Li Jianyue understood, and immediately felt some sympathy for Li Moyin. At this time, Li Moyin was still immersed in the surprise of the buffet. He was still excitedly thinking about which restaurant to eat at. The meat would be better, and the desserts would be more suitable. Thinking about it made him drool and his stomach shrink. Li Moyin decided to digest it first. On the other side, Li Mosin looked at Li Jianyue and asked, "What are you looking for just now?" "Oh, I'm looking for my classmate. He works here part-time, and comes to work every day after school to earn money." Li Jianyue's big eyes fell on the crowd in front of her again. Her eyes moved to the Kimmelman bear again. "Do you remember that bear? I bought kitten ears from him last time." Of course Li Mosin remembered. The last time he came here, he remembered that the Kimmelman had been looking at them. It was either looking at Li Jianyue or him. Li Mosin was very sensitive to people's gazes. At this moment, he looked at the Kimmelman and narrowed his eyes. At this time, the Kimmelman Kun was swaying, looking charmingly naive. It was surrounded by children, holding a handful of balloons and small toys in its hands. It sent them out one by one, and after the parents scanned the QR code, it waved to the children. The children were very happy. After waving goodbye to the Kimmelman, they quickly grabbed the balloons and walked away. However, after the first wave of children left, a new wave of children surrounded it. The Kimmelman Kun was very busy. Li Jianyue looked at the busy doll and said, "I don't know if it's him. I can't see his face, and the things he's selling are different from the last time. He looks really busy." Li Mosin pursed his lips. "Are you on good terms with him? I didn't like him at first. I thought that he was a delinquent. He didn't do well in school, and liked to doze off in class. He always looked like he hadn't woken up all day. But a few days ago, I finally found out that he didn't sleep enough because he wanted to earn money. His father didn't give him pocket money, because of his stepmother. His father also didn't allow him to draw. In fact, his drawings are very good. Let me show you." Li Jianyue turned her head to look at Li Mosin and blinked. "I didn't like him at first." Li Jianyue had removed Quan Jingyi's WeChat from the blacklist. Quan Jingyi had even sent her a few portraits. Chapter 2259. Seeing the surprise on Li Mosin's face, Li Jianyue was a little happy and asked, "I didn't lie to you, did I? It's really great." Li Jianyue's expression was a little proud, as if it was something worth showing off. Seeing this, Li Mosin unconsciously tightened his lips, and a trace of gloominess flashed across his eyes. Not far away, the Kimmelman was surrounded by children all the time, collecting money from time to time, handing over the QR code, and then taking small gifts. There was no free time at all. It seemed that the Kimmelman didn't notice them at all, and didn't even look at them. There were so many part-time people every day, so it was not a coincidence that Quan Jingyi was here today. But even so, Li Mosin still felt very uncomfortable in his heart. He put his arm around Li Jianyue's shoulder, and moved her eyes away invisibly. He said calmly, "There are too many people here. Let's go and play something else." Li Jianyue looked at the Kimmelman, and saw that it really didn't seem to have time to talk to her at all. Then she nodded and said, "Well, let's see if he is my classmate later." Li Mosin's lips tightened. He didn't say anything and turned around. Li Moyin saw something fun and shouted from afar, "Brother Mosin Ursu, come quickly. Let's line up here. If we wait any longer, there will be more people." Because there were many people on the weekend, there were a lot of people waiting in line in the amusement park. Li Jianyue also knew that there were fewer people at this time, so she quickly ran to Li Moyin and shouted, "Coming." Then she suddenly stopped and turned to Mosin and said, "Brother Mosin, I want to eat ice cream." It was near noon, and the sun was getting more and more scorching. At this moment, Mosin also felt a little cold, so he nodded. Then Li Jianyue turned around, and ran to her brother to line up, and soon she was behind Li Moyin. Li Mosin withdrew his gaze from Li Jianyue's back, and then his eyes fell on the Kumaman again. The Kumaman seemed to be finally busy. After sending away the last batch of children, it had a moment of respite. It touched its full pockets with satisfaction. When it turned around, it seemed to see Li Mosin and pause for a moment. Then, it spread out its hands and pointed to a pile of little things in front of it, as if asking. Li Mosin shook his head slightly, and quickly turned to leave. After buying 3 ice creams, Li Jianyue and Li Mayan had already lined up inside. When they saw Li Mosin coming over, the two of them quickly waved at him. After apologizing to the people around them and greeting them, they let Li Mosin cut the line and come in. She ate the ice cream contentedly. Suddenly Li Jianyue's phone vibrated. He picked it up. It was WeChat. Quan Jingyi, you're at the amusement park? Li Mosin took advantage of his height to take a look. When he saw Quan Jingyi's name, his mood was already terrible. Li Mayan was a little taller than Li Jianyue. When he saw the name and the content of the message, he immediately screamed, "Hey, who is this? Li Ersu, are you in love?" Li Jianyue replied, "How is that possible? They're just classmates. Don't you have female classmates too? That's different. Does he want to chase you?" Chapter 2260. Romance Chinese Network. The latest chapter of the 99th divorce was updated as soon as possible. Why not? After saying that, Li Jianyue lowered her head and quickly replied to Quan Jingyao. "Yes, where are you? I don't see you." Before the message could be sent, the phone had been taken away from her hand. Li Mosin calmly put her phone into his pocket and said to Li Mayan, "Don't bring your phone with you when you play the game. Give me your phone." Li Mayan was surprised and said, "Brother Mosin, aren't you going in with us?" Li Mosin looked up at the roller coaster and said, "I'm afraid of heights." "Liar." Thinking of the last time, Li Jianyue immediately said, "We played this together last time." After saying that, she pouted and looked up at him in disbelief. "Do you not want to play with us anymore?" Li Mayan pursed his lips and smiled. He rubbed the top of her head and said, "No, go quickly. The staff is urging us." The staff was indeed urging them. Li Mayan couldn't wait to shove the phone into Li Mosin's hand and grabbed Li Jianyue's arm. "Ersu, go quickly. Let Brother Mosin accompany us in the next project." Li Jianyue was dragged into the roller coaster by Li Mayan. At first she was still concerned about Mosin. After sitting on the roller coaster, she and Li Mayan were so excited that they forgot everything else. The roller coaster was accompanied by the screams of young men and women as it passed in front of Li Mosin. The phone in his hand suddenly vibrated again. Li Mosin clicked on Li Jianyue's phone and saw that it was another message from Quan Jingyi. "Quan Jingyi, where are you now? I'm done with my work. I'll go find you." Looking at Quan Jingyi's WeChat profile picture, Li Mosin's gaze became more and more gloomy. He clenched the phone in his hand and thought for a moment. He imitated Li Jianyue's tone and replied, "I want to accompany my brother. I don't want to play with you." After sending it, he immediately deleted the message and only left the message that Quan Jingyi had sent previously. He didn't know if he was really hurt by this message. Quan Jingyi didn't reply to Li Jianyue's message even after they finished playing. Although Li Mayan was fat deep down, he was a lively little fatty who liked excitement. After playing the roller coaster, he couldn't wait to drag Li Jianyue and Li Mosin to play other exciting projects. Looking at the happy Li Jianyue, Li Mosin was in a good mood and accompanied the two of them to play the next game. By noon, Li Mayan's interest was completely taken away by the food, and he made a fuss about going to the buffet. Li Mosin took the two of them to the restaurant in the amusement park. Since it was the weekend, the restaurant was full of people. Moreover, the buffet that Li Mayan had been longing for wasn't here. When he saw the restaurant, Li Mayan immediately grabbed Li Ersu and Li Mosin's hands and shouted, "Oh, where's the buffet? Big whore." Li Jianyue was indignant. She put her hands on her hips and said, "I'll eat this today." Li Mayan was exasperated. "But you promised to have a buffet this morning." Li Jianyue giggled as she took a step forward and said, "I didn't promise you anything." Li Mayan was dumbfounded. and suddenly remembered that it was Li Jianxian who had promised to have a buffet with him. Li Moyan instantly felt as if he had been cheated. He wanted to cry but had no tears. He turned to look at Li Mosin and cried out, "Brother Mosin!" Li Mosin said seriously, "If we go out now, we'll have to buy another ticket to come in." "Ah, I don't want to." Li Moyan was about to cry. "I want to eat a buffet." Li Moyun. Li Jianyue rarely put on the airs of an older sister. "If you continue eating, you'll really become fat like a pig." Li Mosin ignored Li Moyun's opinion and turned to line up in front to get a number. There were many people in the queue. When Li Mosin got the number, there were already more than 10 tables in front of them even if he came early. When he came back with the number, he didn't know when, but there was a tall young man beside Li Jianyue. Chapter 2261. Romance Chinese Network. The latest chapter of the 99th divorce was updated as soon as possible. Looking at the young man's back, Li Mosin immediately felt a sense of crisis. It was an indescribable feeling, as if his treasure was being coveted. Li Mosin hid the expression on his face and walked forward silently. When he walked in front of her, he saw Li Jianyue looking very excited. She tilted her head and gestured with her hands to pretend to be a bunny. Her big black eyes were clear and pure, and her fair and tender face looked very cute. Quan Jingyi, who was standing in front of her, stared at her with a slightly roguish smile on his face. Li Mosin could empathize with that kind of look. It was the look of being attracted to the opposite sex. "Brother Mosin, you're back." Li Moyun, who was standing at the side, saw him first and waved at him. Li Jianyue and Quan Jingyi also turned to look at him. Li Mosin pursed his lips and smiled faintly. He looked at Quan Jingyi, and the latter was also looking at him with a sizing gaze. "Brother Mosin, what did you order?" Li Jianyue turned around and ran to his side. She grabbed his arm and looked at the receipt. She shouted proudly, "Haha, it's all my favorite food." Li Moyan bellowed angrily, "I'll never hang out with scammers again." Li Jianyue smiled indifferently and said, "Brother Mosin only ordered 3 servings. If you don't eat, then let Quan Jingyi eat." In front of a foodie, snatching food from others was like killing his parents. Li Moyan immediately looked at Quan Jingyi warily. Quan Jingyi put his hands in his trouser pockets and raised his eyebrows slightly. He said very cooperatively, "I have no objection." "No." Li Moyan immediately hugged Li Mosin's arm and shouted, "Who said I don't want to eat? Brother Mosin, I want to eat the biggest portion." Li Jianyue hugged her arms and snorted, "Quan Jingyi has already promised to have lunch with us. There's no more for you." Hearing Li Jianyue's words, Li Mosin frowned slightly unconsciously. He glanced coldly at Quan Jingyi, who had no intention of leaving. He put his arm around Li Jianyue's shoulder as if nothing had happened. "Let's go and find a seat first." Li Jianyue raised her head and looked at him. "Brother Mosin, I invited a classmate to eat with us. Can you order another meal?" Li Mosin said calmly, "I ordered a lot. It's enough to eat. If it's not enough, I'll order more." The 4 of them were led to the lounge area by the waiter. Li Jianyue excitedly pulled a stool over to Quan Jingyi. She asked curiously, "Can you bring me along for a part-time job?" Quan Jingyi asked. Looking at her clear and expectant eyes, Quan Jingyi felt as if his heart was being brushed by a feather. The words of rejection were stuck in his throat. At this time, Li Mosin suddenly interrupted. "You want to do a part-time job here?" Li Jianyue turned around and nodded excitedly. "I want to experience it too." It's very interesting to hear Quan Jingyi talk about it. "No." Li Mosin took a sip of water and said faintly, "Dad and Mom won't agree." Although Li Xiqing and Su Qianxi did not spoil their children, they would not allow Li Jianyue to experience social life so early. After all, they had to focus on learning now. There would be opportunities in the future for social practice. Li Jianyue pouted unhappily. Li Mosin poured a glass of water and handed it to her. He coaxed, "I'll bring you along during the holidays. Dad won't refuse." This kind of interest was temporary. After a period of time, it would naturally be forgotten. Chapter 2262. Romance Chinese Network. The latest chapter of the 99th divorce was updated as soon as possible. I'm just experiencing it. Quan Jingyi sat lazily on the chair with a beautiful smile. I'll take you there after dinner. There's a Pikachu set with the tour guide. Wow, really? I like Pikachu very much. Li Jianrui immediately felt as if a switch had been turned on. She was overflowing with joy. She leaned on the table and leaned toward Quan Jingyi. Can I wear the extra set? Quan Jingyi nodded. Sure. Li Jianrui was so happy that she was about to fly. She smiled brightly at Quan Jingyi and said, That's great. You're so nice. Quan Jingyi raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled playfully. You're saying that I'm nice now. What will you do when you know I'm nicer in the future? Li Jianrui didn't notice the deeper meaning in Quan Jingyi's words and blurted out. Then I'll be nicer to you too. Really? Li Jianrui nodded seriously. Of course. As soon as she finished speaking, there was a harsh sound of a chair rubbing against each other. Li Mosen suddenly stood up and said with a bad expression, Ursu, you have time now. Come with me to order some food for your classmate. Li Jianrui looked back at him in confusion. She also stood up and said, Didn't you just say? Before she could finish speaking, Li Mosen took her hand and left. Quan Jingyi sat up straight. When he was about to pick up a glass of water, he suddenly found that the little fatty next to him was looking at him inquisitively. Why are you looking at me like that? Quan Jingyi asked directly. Li Moyen looked at him, and then at the two who had left. He couldn't help but feel puzzled. Why did he feel that something was wrong? Li Moyen scratched his forehead and glanced at Quan Jingyi next to him again. He suddenly felt enlightened and pursed his lips. It must be because of this boy. The way this boy looked at Ursu, and the way he spoke just now showed that he was not a decent person. Ursu was so stupid that she didn't even realize that she was being teased by Quan Jingyi. Brother Mosen must have taken Ursu to a place where there was no one to educate her. With this thought in mind, Li Moyen held the cup of water and looked at Quan Jingyi meaningfully. He asked, How is your relationship with my sister? Quan Jingyi's attitude was calm. He said calmly, Not bad. Which aspect is fine? Quan Jingyi looked over and asked, Which aspect do you want it to be? Other than Li Jianrui, Li Moyun and Li Mosen did not have a good time at the amusement park. Needless to say, Li Moyen was still brooding over the fact that he had been cheated. When he came out of the amusement park, he swore that he would never go out with Ursu and Li Mosen again. Li Mosen didn't show his unhappiness on the surface, but he became a little quiet when he got home and didn't eat much at dinner. At night, when Li Mosen was reading in his bedroom, there was a knock on the door. He turned back to look. Li Jianrui secretly raised her eyebrows and poked half of her head out. She sweetly called out, Brother Mosen. Then, she pushed the door open and walked in with a bowl of supper. Li Mosen turned back to continue reading and asked, What's the matter? Li Jianrui put the supper on the table and pulled a stool to sit next to him. She held her face and said, You didn't eat much at night. I specially asked Andy Rong to make supper for you. Chapter 2263. As soon as she finished speaking, Li Mosen's face darkened. Li Jianrui was frightened by his sudden change of expression and shrank her neck. She stuck out her tongue and didn't realize what she said wrong. What's wrong? He's really a good person, but his behavior is sometimes. Hey, Brother Mosen, where are you going? Wait for me. Li Mosen clenched his fists and didn't want to hear her say anything about Quan Jingyi. He turned around and left with a gloomy face. Except for Li Jianrui, Li Moyen and Li Mosen didn't have a good time at the amusement park. Needless to say, Li Moyen was still brooding about being cheated. When he came out of the amusement park, he still swore that he would never go out with Ursu and Li Mosen again. Li Mosen didn't show his unhappiness on the surface. He just became a little quiet when he got home and didn't eat much at dinner. At night, when Li Mosen was reading in the bedroom, there was a knock on the door. He turned back to look. Li Jianrui secretly raised her eyebrows and poked half of her head out. She sweetly called out, Brother Mosen. Then, she pushed the door open and walked in with a bowl of supper. Li Mosen turned back to continue reading and asked, What's the matter? Li Jianrui put the supper on the table and pulled a stool to sit next to him. She held her little face and said, "You didn't eat much at night. I specially asked Auntie Rong to make supper for you." Although she didn't know why Brother Mosen suddenly became so angry at the amusement park at noon, she also understood that Brother Mosen was angry because of her. He was so angry that he didn't eat dinner, so he specially asked Auntie Rong to make supper for him and personally brought it over. Li Mosen grunted without looking up and continued to read his book. He had no intention of paying any attention to her. Li Jianhua blinked and pulled the stool closer to him. "I asked Granny Rong to make your favorite wonton. If you don't eat it, I'm going to give it to Mo Yin to eat." "Okay." Li Mosen continued to flip through the book in his hand and said perfunctorily, "Well, I'm not hungry. You go and give it to Mo Yin. You are condoning Mo Yin to commit crimes." Li Jianhua grabbed his arm and leaned over. "Brother Mosen, what book are you reading? It's so interesting." From the moment she came in, Li Mosen's attention was not on the book at all. When he heard her question, he turned to look at the contents of the book. Noticing that there were some unhealthy sentences in the book, he slammed the book shut. Ordinary extracurricular books. After saying that, he reached out and picked up the supper. Seeing that he was finally willing to eat supper, Li Jianhua tactfully stood up. She clasped her hands behind her back and looked around Li Mosen's room like a cadre visiting the countryside. Li Mosen's room was like him. It was low-key and simple. There was not much decoration, but the arrangement of things was just right. Li Jianhua leaned in front of his cabinet and looked at the figurines inside. She said, "Brother Mosen, don't be angry with me, okay? If you're angry and don't eat, I'll be sad too. When I go to the amusement park in the future, I won't only care about myself and forget about Brother Mosen." The words spoken in a sweet voice were tactful and pleasant. Her casual words were like the charming fragrance of wine, seeping into the heart and spleen. Li Mosen used the spoon to drink 2 mouthfuls of soup and couldn't eat anymore. He wanted to read the latest chapter of 99th Divorce Claw Book House for free. Chapter 2264. Romance Chinese Network. The latest chapter of the 99th Divorce was updated as soon as possible. Li Mosen drank 2 mouthfuls of soup with the spoon and couldn't eat anymore. The little girl's incessant coaxing really made him unable to be angry. Li Jianhua thought carefully for a whole night and only found this mistake that made Li Mosen unhappy. She shouldn't have been so focused on her own happiness that she forgot about Li Mosen. After saying this, she remembered that at noon, when she asked Li Mosen if he didn't like Quan Jingyi, Li Mosen's unfathomable look, so she continued, "Brother Mosen, Quan Jingyi is my friend now. He is actually a really good person. Before she could finish speaking, her arm was suddenly grabbed by someone behind her. The person behind her grabbed her arm and pressed her against the wall. His handsome and chiseled face suddenly appeared in front of her. His pitch-black eyes stared at her with suppressed emotions. Li Jianhua looked at Li Mosen with her eyes wide open. She forgot what she wanted to say and forgot to move. The girl's white and tender skin was as delicate as a porcelain doll, and her big black eyes looked at him without blinking. Her thick and long eyelashes trembled slightly. Li Mosen's heart suddenly softened. He lowered his eyes slightly, and his gaze fell on the pink and full little mouth, and his slightly raised Adam's apple unconsciously moved up and down. She was within reach in front of him. As long as he wanted, he could kiss her now and taste her sweetness. Li Mosen looked up at her, and Li Jianhua burst out laughing. Her big dark eyes curved as she laughed. She looked at him with a smile and asked, "What's wrong, Brother Mosen?" Li Mosen looked at her motionlessly, and his lips were slightly pursed. He didn't know how many times he had imagined such a scene in his mind, but at this moment he hesitated. Li Jianhua was so innocent, and he couldn't bear to hurt her. After a long time, he pinched her cheek and said faintly, "He is not what you see on the surface. Don't get too close to him in the future." Li Jianhua opened her mouth and wanted to defend Quan Jingyi, but when she saw Li Mosen's expression, she silently swallowed the words in her throat. Li Mosen stood up and turned around. "I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. You can go back." Li Jianhua nodded obediently and said, "Brother Mosen, you must remember to finish your supper." Yes. Back in her room, Li Jianyue took off her shoes and laid on the bed. She stared at the ceiling and exhaled deeply. She was thinking about how to explain to Li Mosin in the future, so that he wouldn't hate Quan Jingyi. Just then, the phone on the table vibrated. She turned over and took the phone. When she opened it, she saw that it was a message from Quan Jingyi. Quan Jingyi, let's go together after school tomorrow. Li Jianyue blinked and replied, I always go home with Brother Mosin. The message was sent, but the other side did not reply for a long time. Just as Li Jianyue was about to put it down, Quan Jingyi sent another message. It's okay. See you tomorrow. Then he sent another photo. It was a photo of her wearing a Pikachu toy suit today. She held the Pikachu headgear with both hands, and the smile on her fair and lovely face was especially bright. Under Quan Jingyi's brush, her eyes were filled with warm and clear light, making the whole picture become beautiful. This painting was many times better than the ones that Quan Jingyi had sent her before. Chapter 2265. Romance Chinese Network. The latest chapter of the 99th divorce was updated as soon as possible. Li Jianyue was as happy as a child. She quickly replied, You're amazing. You drew me so beautifully. Quan Jingyi, it's normal. Li Jianyue laughed and said in a low voice, shameless. But when she saw the painting, well, it was beautiful. Li Jianyue smiled and typed a few words, see you tomorrow. The next day, Li Jianyue rushed to school as usual. Quan Jingyi's seat was still empty. The bell rang, and the teacher entered the class with his books. Li Jianyue secretly took out her phone and opened Quan Jingyi's WeChat. Just as she was about to send him a message to ask why he didn't come, a voice came from the door. At the door of the classroom, Quan Jingyi stood there with his school bag on his shoulder. The math teacher looked back at him and said indifferently, Next time you come late, you will stand outside and listen to the class. Quan Jingyi ignored him and walked over with his school bag. On the podium, the math teacher had already started teaching. Li Jianyue took out her math book and opened it. Quan Jingyi, who was next to her, also sat down. Then, a small wooden box was placed on top of her book. Li Jianyue looked back at him in surprise. Quan Jingyi said lazily, Try it. Li Jianyue blinked. You made it. There was no answer, as if he had acquiesced. She glanced at the teacher on the podium and secretly opened the wooden box. When she saw the exquisite candy and cookies placed inside, Li Jianyue's eyes widened in surprise. The cookies were easier to bake, but she didn't know how he made these exquisite and delicious candy. Li Jianyue couldn't believe that Quan Jingyi made all these. What couldn't he do? Just as she was about to raise her head to speak, Quan Jingyi reached out and stuffed a candy into her mouth. Li Jianyue quickly lowered her head and secretly looked at the teacher like a thief. Quan Jingyi's low laughter came into her ears. Is it delicious? The sweetness of milk and fruit blended with each other in her mouth. Li Jianyue's cheeks were slightly red, and her heart was beating fast because of her guilty conscience. He was too bold. If the teacher found out, they would be dead. Li Jianyue covered her mouth with the book and whispered, You're amazing. You even know how to make candy and cookies. Quan Jingyi lowered his eyes and said, My mother taught me when I was very young. Li Jianyue had never heard him talk about his mother. She said sincerely, Auntie is amazing. Quan Jingyi lowered his head, his expression unreadable. He murmured, Yes, she is very powerful. Li Jian suddenly remembered that his mother seemed to have passed away when he was very young. In the afternoon, as the bell rang, the teacher walked out of the classroom with the lesson plans. Quan Jingyi grabbed both of their school bags, kicked his chair away, and walked out of the classroom as well. Li Jianyue was stunned for a moment and shouted, Hey! Such a scene attracted the attention of many people. Quan Jingyi walked lazily without looking back. Let's go home. Quan Jingyi was tall and had long legs. He took 2 steps ahead of Li Jianyue. Li Jianyue was stared at by the surrounding students. Her face was a little hot. She trotted to catch up with him. Quan Jingyi probably thought that Li Jianyue was too slow, so he stopped in his tracks. Li Jianyue finally caught up with him. Just as she was about to take a breather, her hand was suddenly grabbed, and she was pulled forward. Li Jianyue blinked and felt the temperature of the youth's palm. Her face was slightly hot. She wanted to pull her hand out, but looking at Kwon Jingyi's undistracted look, she was afraid that her action would be too unnecessary. Chapter 2266. A large number of students rushed out of the school building to the gate. Not to mention how cool it was. Lee Jianyue's face heated up. She thought about it and wanted to pull her hand back. However, Kwon Jingyi held her tightly and said, "Keep up. You're walking too slowly." Lee Jianyue thought that he was right. Compared to him, she was indeed walking a little slowly. So, she gave up struggling and asked, "Where are you taking me?" "We're going to have fun and eat delicious food." Hearing this, Lee Jianyue's eyes instantly lit up. Delicious food? Or fun? Compared to the amusement park? Kwon Jingyi laughed. "Have you only been to the amusement park? Is there anything else fun?" "There are many." Flash dance. Kwon Jingyi pretended to be mysterious. Lee Jianyue wanted to ask more. Suddenly, she saw a familiar figure standing beside the pillar at the school gate. Lee Jianyue was stunned. She looked up and her eyes met Lee Mosun's dark eyes. "Brother Mosun!" Lee Jianyue shouted naturally. When Kwon Jingyi heard this, he raised his eyebrows and looked in the direction of her gaze. Lee Mosun looked at the two of them with a complicated gaze. Then, his gaze fell on Kwon Jingyi's hand that was holding hers. Their figures were covered and exposed by the crowd, and they looked like they were walking on the street. A pair of blue eyes looked at their intertwined hands and narrowed. Lee Jianyue followed Lee Mosun's gaze. As if she had been electrocuted, she shook off Kwon Jingyi's hand the next moment. It was as if she had done something guilty. However, she had not done anything guilty. She had even promised Kwon Jingyi to play, so she would not go home with him. She had already told Brother Mosun about this. This feeling of guilt was too strong. Lee Jianyue was extremely annoyed. Just as she was hesitating about what to say, Lee Mosun had already walked towards them. Lee Jianyue looked up at Lee Mosun. The little girl's face was regretful and conflicted. She said, "Ah, Brother Mosun, why are you here?" "To pick you up." Lee Mosun's eyes were gloomy. At this time, his voice also sounded cold. "Go home." But, before Lee Jianyue could finish her sentence, Lee Mosun grabbed her arm. Lee Jianyue was pulled over. But before she could get close to Lee Mosun, her other hand was held again. He turned around and saw Kwon Jingyi with a faint smile on his face. "Senior classmate Lee has already agreed to go with me. She has also told you about the situation, right?" He did. However, he did not want to agree. Anyone could, but not Kwon Jingyi. This male classmate was too aggressive. 16 or 17 years old were the easiest to be seduced by such a boy. How could he allow him to continue to commit crimes? Lee Mosun retracted his gaze and said calmly, "I did, but our house isn't in the same direction as yours, so I won't trouble you." Lee Jianyue quickly said, "Brother Mosun, I made an appointment with Kwon Jingyi to go together." Lee Mosun didn't even look at her. He interrupted her with a calm expression and reached out to Kwon Jingyi. "Classmate, your school bag." Kwon Jingyi looked down at the school bag in his hand and raised his eyebrows. He raised his hand and casually threw the school bag over. He said teasingly, "You will graduate next year. Can you still look at her for the rest of your life?" The careless words were like a thorn, suddenly stabbing into the soft spot that Mosun had never dared to touch. He couldn't. Chapter 2267. Lee Mosun took back her school bag and turned around. His face was cold. "You don't have to worry about that." As he said that, he turned around and pulled Lee Jianyue. Lee Jianyue was a little reluctant. After all, she had already made an appointment with Kwon Jingyi. But seeing that Lee Mosun was obviously very unhappy, she could only swallow her grievances. For the next 2 weeks, Lee Mosun was very strict with her. Time passed quickly, and soon it was the midterm exam. This time, the teacher in charge of the class attached great importance to the exam. It was said that he had formed a bet with the teacher, so he had been very strict with the average score of the class. Even Kwon Jingyi, after communicating with the homeroom teacher twice, began to listen attentively in class, which was rare. After the exam, the class monitor suggested that the whole class go out for a gathering. The students were very enthusiastic. Li Jianyue rarely participated in group activities. After reporting to her parents and brother, she joined the after-exam gathering. A group of young people, in addition to the time, wanted to eat and drink to relax, so the class committee set the location at the KTV. The school uniform of No. 1 Middle School was very eye-catching, revealing the atmosphere of youth everywhere. After getting on the bus that the class committee booked, Li Jianyue realized that Quan Jingyi was going with them. Quan Jingyi got into the car lazily. After seeing Li Jianyue, his slightly listless eyes quickly locked onto her. Then, he walked forward and gently tapped the shoulder of the girl beside Li Jianyue. "Can we change seats?" he asked. The girl was Li Jianyue's new deskmate. When she saw Quan Jingyi's expression, she looked at them ambiguously and said, "Sure, but it's not easy to give up this seat. Do you want to bribe me with something?" Quan Jingyi asked. When Li Jianyue heard this, she felt that she was a little too much. How could a person like Quan Jingyi use something to bribe someone? But unexpectedly, Quan Jingyi did not immediately refuse. Instead, he lowered his head and rummaged through the bag in his hand. Then, he took out a lollipop and handed it to her. "Can I?" "Aya." The girl had only been teasing him. Now that she had received the lollipop, she was even more certain of her guess. She immediately stood up and said, Come on. You can sit here." "Aya. Our classmate Quan Jingyi actually bribed me just to sit with Li Jianyue." The last sentence was shouted out. The surrounding students were already fooling around. When they heard this, some of the nosy boys whistled. "Wow, what a good match. Are they dating? Wow, Li Jianyue is blushing." With the shouts from the surroundings, Quan Jingyi's originally lazy and indifferent attitude gradually disappeared. He turned to look at Li Jianyue and found that her face was red. When Li Jianyue met his gaze, she became even more annoyed and said, "Don't talk nonsense. Be careful that I don't get angry." Li Jianyue didn't look intimidating when she was angry. Instead, she looked more like a spoiled child. The boys didn't take it seriously and started to jeer again. Li Jianyue blushed and shouted, "I'm going to ignore you guys. If you ignore us, you'll ignore Quan Jingyi." "Of course Quan Jingyi is so handsome. You're not handsome." "That hurts." Li Jianyue had already turned her head to look out the window. Quan Jingyi's heart was rippling. Chapter 2268. Oh, it was a little sweet. Li Jianyue was too cute. Quan Jingyi reached out and patted her gently. Li Jianyue turned her head and shouted fiercely, "What?" Quan Jingyi laughed. Like a kitten. Li Jianyue's face heated up when he laughed like that. She shouted, "Hurry up and explain. We're not like what they said. Hurry up and say it." Quan Jingyi looked at her red face and raised his eyebrows. "Why is your face so red? It's fine if they say it. Anyway, we just need to know it ourselves." "But we're obviously not," Li Jianyue said angrily. "Hurry up." "All right," Quan Jingyi said with a helpless look on his face. "You heard it all, but we're still not." "Wow. Still not. Does that mean that we will be in the future?" "Ha ha ha ha, I know. So it's the future Mrs. Quan." Li Jianyue was furious. She turned around and hit him. "What kind of explanation is that?" "That's the explanation." Quan Jingyi looked at her. "Don't you know what it means?" Li Jianyue's heart seemed to skip a beat. She looked at him with her round eyes wide open. Quan Jingyi moved closer and whispered, "You know." Li Jianyue's cheeks turned red. She reached out and pushed him away. She shouted, "I don't know." Quan Jingyi was pushed back a few steps. "Oh," he said. There seemed to be a hint of a smile on his lips, but at the same time he didn't. "If you don't know, then don't know. Anyway, you'll find out eventually." Li Jianyue's heart beat faster. Behind her was a large group of students jeering. Li Jianyue looked out of the car window, but she didn't see anything. Her mind was buzzing. Quan Jingyi, was he confessing to her? But it didn't seem like it. He didn't say that he liked her. But there seemed to be. The way he looked at her just now, it seemed like he really liked her. Li Jianyue kept looking out of the window. After a long time, Quan Jingyi said, "Does your brother know that you came out to play?" Li Jianyue was stunned for a moment. Then she nodded. Yes. The students on the bus had already begun to play their own games. A few students who were more focused on their studies were exchanging their answers for the midterm exam. Most of the students were laughing with each other. After making sure that no one was making fun of her and Quan Jingyi, the tension in her heart eased a little. Quan Jingyi sensed her nervousness and understood. He quietly leaned closer and whispered, "Does your brother know that I'm here too?" Li Jianyue nodded her head again. However, she subconsciously shook her head again and said, "I don't know either. But I'm talking about a class activity. He should know that you're here too. After all, you're also in our class." Quan Jingyi pursed his lips. "Not necessarily." Li Jianyue averted her eyes and thought for a moment before saying, "But Brother Mosen probably won't be angry anymore, right?" Half a month had passed. In the past half a month, in order not to make Li Mosen think too much and be angry, she took the initiative to distance herself from Quan Jingyi. Quan Jingyi seemed to know what was going on. During this time, he had been tactfully staying away from her. It was the first time that such a situation had happened. Quan Jingyi shook his head slightly. "He's too strict with you. Don't you have no freedom at all?" Chapter 2269. When Li Jianyue heard this, she recalled Li Mosen's tough attitude 2 weeks ago. She knew that her parents and brothers loved her dearly since she was young. Because they loved her dearly, they were afraid that she would be hurt, so there were some restrictions. Li Mosen didn't believe that Quan Jingyi was a good person, so he forbade her from getting along with him freely. Li Jianyue understood all these things. "No, Brother Mosen loves me very much. Maybe he misunderstood something. He doesn't allow me to fall in love at such a young age." Li Jianyue stuck out her tongue. "My father and mother also said that I can't fall in love at such a young age. So my brother is just concerned about me. It's not just you. It's the same for other boys." The corners of Quan Jingyi's lips curled up slightly. He tilted his head and whispered into Li Jianyue's ear. "Does it mean that as long as I treat you well, I can intervene in your affairs?" His warm breath caressed her ear. Li Jianyue felt that it was a little close to her. She subconsciously shrank back and said, "No." Quan Jingyi looked at her seriously and said in a clear voice, "Then what if I want to?" Li Jianyue was stunned. She finally realized the distance between them at this time. As soon as this thought popped up in her mind, Li Jianyue's cheeks were burning hot. She felt as if she was being roasted on a fire. Her fair face was flushed and her palms were sweaty. What the hell was he trying to do? Why did he say such strange things to her? Was he really confessing to her? But he didn't even say that he liked her. Was this a confession? Just when Li Jianyue was so nervous that she didn't know how to answer him, Quan Jingyi sat up straight. He seemed very helpless. He crossed his arms over his chest and closed his eyes. He said lazily, "Call me when we arrive." When Li Jianyue saw him turn around, she finally heaved a sigh of relief. Looking out of the car window, Li Jianyue's face was still warm, and her mind was in a mess. Due to the large number of people, when they arrived at the KTV, the class committee suggested that they be divided into 2 groups and asked for 2 large private rooms. The class committee originally planned to separate the boys and girls, but they were met with protests from the boys. In the end, the class committee could only divide the male and female equally. After getting out of the car, Quan Jingyi followed Li Jianyue the entire time. At first, Li Jianyue didn't think much of it. However, when she felt the ambiguous gazes of the people around her, she felt her face burning. In such an occasion, Li Jianyue was originally a very active person, but now she felt that she couldn't let go. Especially with Quan Jingyi sitting next to her, Li Jianyue felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. However, there were so many people that almost everyone was squeezing together. She couldn't move even if she wanted to. There were more than a dozen people in a private room. It was very lively when they made a ruckus. Quan Jingyi had been chatting with someone on his phone ever since he entered the private room. Not long after, Quan Jingyi put his phone back into his pocket and said to her naturally, "I'm going out for a while. Call me if anything happens." Li Jianyue didn't think there was anything wrong with it, so she answered casually. However, a boy next to her started to make a fuss. "Wow, you haven't even gotten together yet, but you already have to report your entry and exit. What a sour smell of love. Li Jianyue was stunned. By the time she reacted, the entire room was in an uproar. Her face burned even hotter. She said angrily, "Don't talk nonsense." "Shut up, all of you." Quan Jingyi glanced at them. "Girls are thin-skinned. All of you be careful." Okay, Brother Quan." Chapter 2270. We won't tease Aunt Quan anymore, ha ha. "Shut up, we're just classmates," Li Jianyue shouted. However, it was clear that it did not have much of a deterrent effect. Quan Jingyi looked at her shy look and didn't stay any longer. He stood up and walked out. After Quan Jingyi left, Li Jianyue felt much more relaxed. After a while, a female classmate next to her handed her a microphone and encouraged her to sing with another female classmate. The song was ordered by another female classmate. It was a common old song, Little Jumping Frog. The song was very cute and cheerful. Li Jianyue did not mince her words. She held the microphone and walked up to the stage. The female classmate's microphone was snatched away by Yang Zihao. Everyone knew about Yang Zihao's fight with Quan Jingyi. Someone joked, "Yang Zihao, you're taking advantage of the situation. Quan Jingyi just left for a while. And you dare to do this? Aren't you afraid that Quan Jingyi will beat you up when he comes back?" Haha, Yang Zihao was beaten up so badly by Quan Jingyi. Yang Zihao, Li Jianyue is the future Mrs. Quan. If Quan Jingyi hits you later, we won't stop him. Li Jianyue's cheeks turned red. She wished she could find a mouse hole to hide in. "Don't talk nonsense," she said angrily with a red face. "If you continue like this, I'll really get angry." On the other hand, Yang Zihao was enraged after being embarrassed. He looked at Li Jianyue nervously and said to the crowd, "That's right. Don't talk nonsense." When did Li Jianyue say that she wanted to date him? He would remember the humiliation that Quan Jingyi gave him for the rest of his life. Now that Quan Jingyi was not here, he felt more confident after saying this. He straightened his chest and said, "Quan Jingyi is a bully. What else can he do besides violence? If he didn't know how to hit people, how could someone as innocent as Li Jianyue fall for a bad youth like him, who doesn't study hard?" Although she didn't like it when her classmates teased her and Quan Jingyi, she was still very angry when she heard Yang Zihao insult Quan Jingyi. Last time, he was the one who made the first move. In the end, it was Quan Jingyi who was scolded. Besides, how was Quan Jingyi a delinquent? He was obviously very good at drawing and worked very hard. Before the exam this time, he also studied very seriously. Li Jianyue turned around angrily and was about to defend Quan Jingyi when the door of the private room was suddenly pushed open. "Looks like I, the delinquent youth, didn't beat you, the top student dog, until you learned to speak human language." At the door of the private room, Quan Jingyi had his hands in his trouser pockets. He leaned against the door frame and looked at the shocked Yang Zihao with a faint smile. Beside him stood a tall and beautiful girl. When Yang Zihao saw Quan Jingyi, he couldn't help but shiver. He immediately became terrified. The boys in the class also jeered. "Yang Zihao, hurry up and return the microphone to Zhao Jing. Come down. If you don't come down now, Quan Jingyi will beat you up." Yang Zihao's face turned red with anger, but when he saw Quan Jingyi's half-smile, he didn't say anything. He returned the microphone to the female student next to him. Zhao Jing took Yang Zihao's microphone and walked up to Li Jianyue. "Li Jianyue, I've picked another song. Let's sing it again." "Ignore him." Li Jianyue nodded and looked back at the door. Quan Jingyi smiled and raised his eyebrows at her. He said something to the girl next to him, and the two of them walked in together. But who was the girl next to him? Li Jianyue couldn't help but look at her. She looked a little familiar. Chapter 2271. The girl obviously noticed Li Jianyue's gaze and waved at her with a youthful smile on her face. The more Li Jianyue looked at her, the more familiar she felt, so she also waved at her. The cheerful music sounded, and Zhao Jing held Li Jianyue's hand and swayed her body. Li Jianyue was a little restrained because Quan Jingyi was back, but she was soon distracted by the music. Zhao Jing's voice was neutral, and she sang the adult male part. Li Jianyue's voice was sweet, and she sang the child's voice. The dream planted in the happy pond becomes the ocean. The bulging eyes and the big mouth sing equally loudly. Lend me a pair of small wings and I can fly to the sun. I believe a miracle is on me, la. Under the gorgeous light, Li Jianyue and Zhao Jing let go of each other. The two girls had hardly spoken before, but at this moment, they cooperated very well. Li Jianyue held the microphone in one hand and swung it with the other. She turned around cutely with the rhythm and shook her butt happily. In the middle of the song, she and Zhao Jing imitated the little frog and croaked at the same time. Their nose was slightly wrinkled, and their big eyes were moving. Their cute expression instantly made everyone present feel cute. Ha 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 ha. It's so cute. What kind of fairy combination is this? Li Jianyue is so cute. I, a girl, am about to fall in love with her. Quan Jingyi was drinking his drink. He looked at the cheerful and cute girl and curled his lips. For a moment he was in a trance. Every frown, every smile, every move was like a picture of the scene. She was really cute. Qin Shizao looked at Li Jianyue and then at him. She asked jokingly, Jingyi, is she the interesting girl you mentioned? Quan Jingyi looked at Li Jianyue without moving his eyes. Qin Shizao crossed her arms in front of her chest. Although there was a smile on her face, there was a flash of disdain in her eyes when she looked at Li Jianyue. She was so childish. It was obvious that she was a flower in a greenhouse. There were a lot of girls like her outside. How was she interesting? However, she seemed to be the sister of Senior Mosen. Thinking of the black-haired and blue-eyed boy, Qin Shizao's eyes became more calculating. At the end of the song, the atmosphere in the private room was high. The students were all shouting for Li Jianyue and Zhao Jing to play another song. Li Jianyue sang happily. Usually, when she went out to play with her family, it was always her mother and Mo Yun singing, while the others played by themselves. Even when she was playing with Xiao Xiao and Pan Pan, there were only a few of them cheering for each other. This was the first time that she was singing and performing in front of her classmates, and there were so many people praising her. When Li Jianyue saw her classmates' praises, she couldn't hide her excitement. However, she still shook her head and said, "This is Al's song. Al, you do it." Al was a male classmate. When he took the microphone from Li Jianyue's hand with a smile, he thanked her. But then he suddenly pushed her with a bad intention. Li Jianyue was shocked. Just when she thought that she was going to fall, a pair of big hands caught her firmly. Looking back, it was Quan Jingyi. Li Jianyue breathed a sigh of relief. When she glared at Al, he had already pretended to know nothing and turned around to sing. Quan Jingyi chuckled. "Look at how angry you are." His voice was very low with a hint of doting. Zhao Jing exclaimed, "How doting and sweet. It's really the tone of a boyfriend talking to his girlfriend. You guys should be together soon." Li Jianyue suddenly thought of Li Mosen. Brother Mosen often talked to her like this. Was this doting? Was it sweet? Download address. Chapter 2272. With Al's funny singing, the room became lively again. Li Jianyue followed Quan Jingyi and sat down on the sofa. Qin Shizao, who was sitting at the side, took the initiative to reach out to Li Jianyue. "Hi, hello. I'm Jingyi's friend. My name is Qin Shizao." As she got closer, the more Li Jianyue looked at Qin Shizao, the more familiar she felt. She reached out and shook hands with Qin Shizao. She also introduced herself politely. "Hello, my name is Li Jianyue." Qin Shizao smiled and asked bluntly, "May I ask, why have you been looking at me since I came in?" Being asked so directly by Qin Shizao, Li Jianyue was a little embarrassed, which made her seem very rude. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to look at you. I just thought you looked a little familiar." "Really?" Qin Shizao smiled in surprise. "Me too. When I first came in, I felt that you looked very familiar. Is this fate?" "All right." Quan Jingyi took a can of drink and handed it to Li Jianyue. He smiled and said, "Who are you not familiar with?" Qin Shizao pretended to be angry and hit him. She stood up and pulled him, saying, "Go to hell. Aren't you embarrassed to be sandwiched between two girls? Make way. I want to sit with Jianyue." The two of them seemed to have a very good relationship. Quan Jingyi was not angry at Qin Shizao's rudeness. Instead, he smiled and gave way to the two of them. Qin Shizao also reached out and took a can of drink. She opened it and clinked glasses with Li Jianyue. She winked and whispered into her ear. Actually, I've heard Jingyi talk about you a long time ago. I even secretly saw your portrait on his phone. Just now, I even saw your portrait on his phone's screensaver. In that case, it was not surprising that Qin Shizao said that she looked familiar when she saw her. However, Li Jianyue couldn't figure out why she found Qin Shizao familiar. He felt like he had really seen her somewhere before. But when she heard Qin Shizao's last sentence clearly, her fair cheeks instantly flushed red. She couldn't help but sneak a glance at Quan Jingyi. Quan Jingyi was sipping his drink while watching Ael's performance. Under the light, his handsome side profile was straight and handsome. Li Jianyue's face heated up. She pinched herself in embarrassment. Li Jianyue, what are you thinking? Jianyue, are you blushing? Qin Shizao smiled ambiguously. Li Jianyue immediately retorted. I didn't. Ah, you're getting more and more popular. Of course not. Li Jianyue's palms were burning from her teasing. When Quan Jingyi heard the laughter, he turned around and looked over. Their eyes met inadvertently, and Li Jianyue quickly pretended to be calm and avoided it. Quan Jingyi raised his eyebrows slightly. What's wrong? Qin Shizao coughed lightly and looked at Li Jianyue ambiguously. She said, It's none of your business. I'm whispering to Jianyue. It was getting late, and the gathering was coming to an end. Li Jianyue and Quan Jingyi were originally going to take a bus home with their classmates, but because Qin Shizao's house was nearby, Qin Shizao invited them to her house to play. After Li Jianyue and Quan Jingyi told the class committee, they went to Qin Shizao's house together. Qin Shizao's house was in a high-end neighborhood nearby, and the decoration of her house was also very luxurious. It could be seen that Qin Shizao's family should be well off. At this time, Qin Shizao's parents had not returned yet, and there were only servants at home. Download address, phone reading. Chapter 2273. The Ambiguity of Youth 7. Qin Shizao ordered the servants to send the snacks to her room, and then brought the two of them back to her room. Quan Jingyi seemed to have come to Qin Shizao's house a lot. He didn't seem to be restrained at Qin Shizao's house. After entering Qin Shizao's room, Quan Jingyi took out the game controller and gave it to Li Jianyue. He said, I'll teach you how to play games. When Li Jianyue saw this, she was reminded of the game that her brother usually played with Chu. These two perverts often played, but the difficulty of the games they played were too high. She tried it once and was traumatized. Seeing Quan Jingyi like this, he said honestly, I don't know how to play this game. That's why I said I wanted to teach you. Quan Jingyi sat down beside her naturally. Try it. Li Jianyue held the controller and watched him turn it on. Okay. The game soon began. Li Jianyue realized that this game was not as difficult as the two perverts at home, but it was not easy for her either. Li Jianyue was a little depressed when she died twice very quickly. Quan Jingyi said, It doesn't matter. It's always like this at the beginning. Qin Shizao teased. Hey, you two have to take care of me, a single dog, okay? I want to play too. Quan Jingyi rejected her heartlessly. Wait a moment. Let's play a few rounds first. After Qin Shizao's protest failed, she had no choice but to sit beside Li Jianyue with the snacks and drinks brought by the servants to guide her. Jianyue, beat him up. He's going to die. Beat him up. Quick. Li Jianyue was nervous and excited. Her fair and tender face was flushed with excitement. Quan Jingyi glanced sideways at her. His movements were still smooth. Looking at her serious expression, he deliberately tilted the controller. Yay! Li Jianyue cheered and high-fived Qin Shizao excitedly. Ha ha ha, Jingyi, you little bastard, you deserve this. If I knew that Jianyue could cure you, I would have been friends with Jianyue a long time ago. Qin Shizao snorted with a smile and said, Who asked you to bully me in the game? Li Jianyue didn't expect to win one day. She exclaimed excitedly, Again? Let me do it. Let's play 3-player mode. Looking at the two excited girls, Quan Jingyi held the controller and started the game. He fought the two girls alone. Li Jianyue and Qin Shizao cooperated with each other to fight Quan Jingyi. Every time Quan Jingyi counterattacked, the two girls would scream nervously. Quan Jingyi couldn't help but chuckle. The three of them were addicted to the game and played a few rounds in a row. It wasn't until Li Jianyue's phone rang that they stopped. Li Jianyue took out her phone. When she saw that it was a call from Li Mosin, she became inexplicably nervous. However, she didn't dare to make it too obvious, for fear that Quan Jingyi would misunderstand and get angry. She stood up and walked towards the balcony as she answered the phone. "Hello, Brother Mosin. Is the party over?" She didn't want to lie, but she didn't dare to tell Li Mosin that she was with Quan Jingyi at the moment. Li Jianyue felt a chill down her spine when she thought of how angry Li Mosin had been in the past. She hesitated for a moment before replying in agreement. Li Mosin asked on the other end of the phone, "What's wrong?" Li Jianyue bit her lip and said guiltily, "It's over. I'm playing at my classmate's friend's house now. I'll go home later." "Huh." Li Mosin's voice didn't sound happy or angry. He asked, "It's so late. Others need to rest. I'll pick you up. Address." End of this chapter. Chapter 2274. The Romance of Youth, 8. Li Mosin's tone was too calm, and Li Jianyue's uneasy heart was instantly relieved. She told Li Mosin the address of Qin Shizao's house. 20 minutes later, the servant of Qin Shizao's house knocked on the door and said that a boy had come to pick up his sister. Li Jianyue put down the game controller and stood up to say goodbye to the two. "My brother is here to pick me up. I'll go home first." "Your brother?" Qin Shizao was slightly startled. Her eyes were filled with anticipation as she asked, "Could it be the senior Li from the 3rd year of high school?" Li Jianyue nodded innocently and asked in surprise, "Shizao also knows Brother Mosin?" Qin Shizao was stunned and shook her head with a smile. "I don't know him. Senior Li is very famous in school. I just realized that your surname is also Li, so I asked casually. I didn't expect you two to really be brother and sister." Qin Shizao put down the controller and stood up. She said enthusiastically, "Let's go, Jianyue. I'll send you off." After saying that, Qin Shizao turned around and looked at Quan Jingyi, who was sitting on the ground with one leg curled up lazily with his hands behind his back. She said, "Hey Jingyi, Jianyue is going home. Aren't you going down with me to send her off?" Quan Jingyi turned around and looked up at her. His gaze then fell on Li Jianyue. He stared at Li Jianyue and curled his lips slightly. He said meaningfully, "I'll be able to see her again tomorrow. Why should I cause trouble for her today?" Turning around, Quan Jingyi raised an arm and waved. "Be careful on the way." Qin Shizao didn't know about the grudge between Quan Jingyi and Li Mosin, so she didn't understand what he meant at the moment. He's saying something inexplicable again. "Jianyue, let's go. I won't talk to this little bastard anymore." Qin Shizao didn't understand, but Li Jianyue did. But she was also very troubled. All of this was just a misunderstanding. Quan Jingyi was not wrong, and Brother Mosin was not wrong. She couldn't be biased towards either side. When they went downstairs, Qin Shizao kept holding Li Jianyue's hand and warmly invited her to come often in the future. She liked her very much. The two of them chatted and laughed as they walked down the stairs. In the living room, Li Mosin sat on the sofa and drank the tea that the servant had brought over. His sitting posture was not like that of most high school students, who were hunched over and crossed their legs. Instead, his back was straight, and the temperament he exuded was that of a noble who had walked out of a classical painting. Just looking at his back made one's heart beat wildly, just like his innate blue eyes. Qin Shizao's hand was still holding Li Jianyue's. She was smiling, but her eyes were already attracted by the figure, and even her breathing became a little tight. "Brother Mosin." Li Jianyue let go of Qin Shizao's hand and ran over quickly. She threw herself on Li Mosin's back across the sofa. He was probably afraid that the tea in his hand would burn her, so he immediately stretched out his arm and placed the cup on the coffee table. He turned his head slightly and revealed a faint smile that he rarely revealed. "Be careful." Looking at the two figures, Qin Shizao's eyes were filled with envy. If Li Mosin could also smile at her like this, how great would it be? Li Mosin stood up and walked to Li Jianyue's side. He raised his hand to help her tidy her collar. Looking at Li Jianyue's flushed face and fine sweat, he asked. Why is there so much sweat on your forehead? Li Jianyue said happily. I'm excited playing games with Shizao and the others. After saying that, she took Li Mosen's hand and said to Qin Shizao, Brother Mosen, this is my new friend Qin Shizao. Hearing Li Jianyue's words, Li Mosen looked at Qin Shizao indifferently, as if he had just discovered her existence. End of this chapter. Chapter 2275. Qin Shizao was really hurt by Li Mosen's gaze. But at the same time, she was a little surprised by the way Li Mosen looked at Li Jianyue. The way he looked at Li Jianyue, it was as if as long as Li Jianyue was there was no one else in his eyes. Qin Shizao suppressed the sadness in her heart, but a simple and appropriate smile appeared on her face. She walked forward and reached out her hand. Hello, Senior Li. Li Mosen nodded with a faint expression and touched her fingertips politely as a greeting. Seeing that Li Mosen turned around and was about to take Li Jianyue away, Qin Shizao's heart tightened. She said anxiously, Senior Li, it's already dark. My auntie is also preparing dinner. Why don't you stay with Jianyue for dinner before leaving? Facing the person she liked who was so close to her, the desire in her heart for him could no longer be satisfied just like that. Even if Li Mosen's eyes didn't stay on her for long, Qin Shizao still wanted to keep him and talk to him more. Li Mosen turned around again. This time, his eyes were no longer as indifferent as before, but he was just a little more polite. No, my parents are waiting for us to go home for dinner. After saying that, Li Mosen turned around and said to Li Jianyue, Let's go home. Li Jianyue was about to nod when Qin Shizao said, Then I'll ask my driver to send you guys. It's dark now. It's not easy to take a taxi from my house. It was fine for new friends to be enthusiastic, but excessive flattery was a little annoying. Li Mosen turned around and stared at Qin Shizao seriously. He said coldly, No need, there's a driver. After saying that, he put his arm around Li Jianyue's shoulder and walked towards the door. Li Jianyue turned around and waved at Qin Shizao. Shizao, goodbye. I'll invite you to my house next time. Qin Shizao smiled and nodded. Okay. Because this was the first time Li Jianyue had returned late. Su Qianxi was also worried about her daughter, so she asked the driver to bring Li Mosen along. On the way back, Li Mosen suddenly asked, How did you meet? Huh. Li Jianyue's heart tightened. She raised her head and asked, Brother Mosen, are you talking about Shizao? Li Mosen's blue eyes took in the subtle changes in her expression, and he nodded calmly. Li Jianyue twisted her hands together and bit her lips. She was struggling in the depths of her heart. She wasn't sure if Brother Mosen would be angry when she mentioned Quan Jingyi, but she wouldn't lie to Li Mosen. She thought for a moment and said, Shizao is Quan Jingyi's friend. Quan Jingyi introduced us to each other at the class gathering. Li Mosen said lightly, So Quan Jingyi was also at Qin Shizao's house just now? Li Jianyue was extremely nervous. It was as if he had done something wrong and was discovered. He felt nervous and guilty at the same time. She was a little afraid that Brother Mosen would be angry. Brother Mosen had always been a very gentle person, but whenever he met Quan Jingyi, his temper would become very bad. But even so, Li Jianyue didn't want to lie to him and said, Yes, we played games with Shizao. Li Mosen pursed his lips. Although his expression was the same as before, Li Jianyue, who had lived with him since he was young, immediately noticed his displeasure, just like at Qin Shizao's house. Chapter 2276. Once Li Mosen changed from being polite to being extremely indifferent to a stranger, it proved that he didn't like the other party, or that the other party had done something that made him unhappy. Li Jianyue immediately pulled his arm and acted coquettishly like she did to her brother when she was young. Brother Mosen, actually, Shizao is the same as Quan Jingyi. They are both very good people. They are all very good to me. They don't want to lead me astray or anything. Afraid that Li Mosen wouldn't believe her, Li Jianyue tried her best to help the two of them regain their good impression. Quan Jingyi said that Shizao is actually a straight-A student. Just like Brother Mosen, she is very good at studying. Looking at her eager look, Li Mosen pursed his lips and nodded faintly. He didn't continue asking. The next day, Kwon Jingyi didn't come to school for a whole day. Just when Lee Jianyue was about to send him a message to ask, she received a friend request from Qin Shizao. Lee Jianyue had a good impression of Qin Shizao and had already treated her as her friend yesterday. After agreeing with her friend's expression, Qin Shizao took the initiative to send her a message. After the two chatted for a while, Qin Shizao took the initiative to ask, "Did Jingyi not go to school?" Lee Jianyue: "Yes." "Does Shizao know why he didn't come to school?" Qin Shizao: "Not long after you left yesterday, his father called him to urge him to go back. I contacted him at night, but he didn't pay attention to me. He must have had a conflict with his father and stepmother again." Then Qin Shizao sent another message. "Jianyue, don't worry about him. This little bastard often dares to do such things. It won't be long." Looking at the message sent by Qin Shizao, Lee Jianyue's mind recalled the time when Kwon Jingyi's father came to school to deal with Kwon Jingyi's matter. Kwon Jingqing's indiscriminate attitude at the beginning was really unbearable. Even after understanding the truth later, the harm to Kwon Jingyi at that time was not something that could be healed easily. Lee Jianyue propped her chin up and stared out of the window, muttering, "Kwon Jingyi couldn't have been beaten by his father again, right?" Because tomorrow was the weekend, Lee Siqing took his wife and children out for dinner in the evening. After dinner, he played outside for a long time before returning home. On the car home, Lee Jianyue received Qin Shizao's WeChat message. "Qin Shizao, Jianyue, I just saw you and Senior Lee. Did your family come out for dinner together?" Lee Jianyue subconsciously looked out of the car window, but she didn't see Qin Shizao. She lowered her head and quickly typed a reply. "Yes. Are you eating here with your family?" Qin Shizao: "No, I'm with Jingyi the little bastard." As soon as Qin Shizao's WeChat message was sent, her phone rang again. "Kwon Jingyi, do you have any plans for tomorrow?" She hadn't heard from him for a whole day. Lee Jianyue wanted to ask him the reason. However, when she thought that this might involve Kwon Jingyi's family matters, she gave up. Lee Jianyue: "Know why?" Kwon Jingyi: "I'm going out to play to make up for what happened last time." Lee Jianyue: "Okay." Last time, Kwon Jingyi said he would take her to eat delicious food and play fun. But because of Brother Mosin, they didn't go in the end. Oh no. Lee Jianyue immediately covered her mouth and looked back at Lee Mosin, who was sitting next to her. How could she answer Kwon Jingyi so quickly? If Brother Mosin knew that she was going out with Kwon Jingyi again, he would definitely be angry again. At this moment, another notification came from WeChat. Chapter 2277. Lee Jianyue looked down. It was Qin Shizao who had pulled her and Kwon Jingyi into a temporary WeChat group. There were only the three of them. Qin Shizao: "Don't chat secretly behind my back." Qin Shizao: "Chat in the group." Then, Qin Shizao tagged Lee Jianyue again and said, "Jianyue, Jingyi said that he wants to treat us to a meal. Let's not stand on ceremony with him tomorrow, okay? The little bastard didn't come to class today and earned some pocket money." Looking at Qin Shizao's message, Lee Jianyue frowned in embarrassment. What should she do? She really wanted to go. After the two villains in her heart fought for a long time, Lee Jianyue looked at Lee Mosin beside her and decided to reject Kwon Jingyi and Qin Shizao. Lee Jianyue: "Kwon Jingyi, Shizao, I'm sorry, I won't go out to play tomorrow." After the message was sent, Qin Shizao sent a few questioning emojis. Lee Jianyue secretly sighed and put the phone back into her pocket. When she got home, Lee Jianyue sat on the sofa in the living room. She took out her phone again and suddenly realized that there were many messages in the WeChat group. Most of it was said by Qin Shizao, and Kwon Jingyi only said a few words. The last sentence that Kwon Jingyi said was to Lee Jianyue: "Bring him out with you." The following were all Qin Shizao's words. Qin Shizao said, "That's right, Jianyue. Since Senior Lee has misunderstood Jingyi, you can ask him to come out with you tomorrow. Don't tell him that Jingyi is also here. Let them have a good chat when they meet." Then Qin Shizao sent another voice message and said, "I heard that Senior Lee is not only good at studying and playing basketball, but he is also very polite. Jianyue, bring Senior Lee with you tomorrow. Any misunderstandings can be solved when you meet him. You and Jingyi are classmates, And you will be in the same class for 2 years. Are you going to not talk to Jingyi for the rest of your life, just to appease Senior Li? After listening to Qin Shizao's voice, Li Mosen walked in with Su Qianxi and the others. Her father, Li Xiqing, was whispering something to Li Mosen. Li Mosen nodded and glanced at Li Jianyue. Li Jianyue looked at him thoughtfully. She held her phone in her hand. He didn't know what she was thinking about. When Li Mosen finished speaking with Li Xiqing and looked up again, Li Jianyue had already gone upstairs. Back in the room, Li Mosen took off his shirt and was about to take a shower in the bathroom when someone knocked on the bedroom door. Li Jianyue's sweet voice came from outside the door. "Brother Mosen, I'm coming in." Hearing Li Jianyue's voice, Li Mosen subconsciously pulled on his clothes. But before he could put them on, the bedroom door had been twisted open. Li Jianyue walked in with a smile on her face. "Brother Mosen, Li Jianyue blinked her eyes as she looked at the body in front of her. He had a flat stomach and a well-defined chest. She walked towards him and said, "Wow, muscles. Brother Mosen, when did you train? You look so handsome." Li Mosen, who was about to put on his clothes, paused for a moment. Seeing her staring at him, he simply threw the clothes aside and asked, "Do you like it? You can touch it." Li Jianyue suddenly thought of the domineering CEO that her deskmate had been watching. When the male lead was facing the female lead naked, he would always ask, "Are you satisfied with what you see?" Thinking of this, Li Jianyue suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Chapter 2278. It seemed to be a little inappropriate, but Li Jianyue really wanted to touch it. It was very comfortable to look at. Seeing that she didn't move, Li Mosen changed the topic at the right time and asked, "What's wrong?" Li Jianyue smiled and said, "It's nothing. I just wanted to ask if you are free tomorrow. I want to invite you out." Hearing her words, Li Mosen's eyes flashed with surprise. "Invitation?" Li Jianyue nodded. "Yes. Are you free?" Li Mosen replied calmly, "When have I not been free since you asked me out?" Li Jianyue smiled slyly and stretched out a finger. "Then it's a deal. You can't go back on your word tomorrow." Li Mosen lowered his head slightly and chuckled. "Well, I won't go back on my word." Seeing his serious look, Li Jianyue turned and returned to her room. She had taken the first step on the road to success. When he saw them tomorrow, he would probably find that Quan Jingyi was not as bad as he thought. Maybe he wouldn't hate her being friends with Quan Jingyi so much in the future. The next day, after breakfast, Li Jianyue went back to her room to change. As soon as she changed, she knocked on Mosen's door, but there was no one there. Downstairs, Li Moyen was lying on the sofa watching TV. When he saw Li Jianyue coming down, he glanced at Li Mosen, who was obviously much more handsome than usual. With one look, he knew that they were going to sneak out without him again. He was so angry that he decided to follow them secretly later. Li Mosen was obviously in a good mood today. He just sat on the sofa with his legs crossed and a smile on his face. He looked at Li Jianyue, who was slowly walking down the stairs, and the meaning in his blue eyes became more profound. Li Jianyue happily jumped over, took Li Mosen's arm and said, "Brother Mosen, let's go." Looking at the two of them, Li Moyen quickly jumped down, and the fat on his body also trembled. He hurriedly asked, "Where are you going?" Li Jianyue turned back and stuck out her tongue at him. She made a face and said, "I'm going out with Brother Mosen. I won't take you this time." Li Moyen shook his head and said, "All of you are so well dressed. The handsome man and the beautiful woman are not taking me. If I didn't know better, I would think that you are going on a date." Hearing Li Moyen's words, Li Mosen was obviously in a better mood. He took Li Jianyue's hand and said, "Let's go." The meeting place set by Quan Jingyi and Qin Shizao was under the LED of the World Trade Square. Along the way, Li Jianyue did not pester Li Mosen to tell him where they were going to play later. Li Mosen was in a good mood today. When they were about to reach the World Trade Square, he patted the slightly nervous Li Jianyue beside him and asked, "Where are you going to play?" "Ah." Li Jianyue turned around and looked at the big clock in the World Trade Square not far away. "I don't know yet. I'll ask them when we get there." "Them?" Li Mosen's eyes darkened. "Who else?" Li Jianhua didn't hide it from him, but she carefully looked at his expression and said, "It's she." Before she could finish speaking, the phone in Li Jianhua's pocket suddenly rang. Li Jianhua stopped talking and took out her phone to answer the call. "Hey, Jianhua, are you guys here? Jingyi and I have arrived. We will wait for you by the roadside. We're almost there. We just passed the traffic light." "Wow, then look out the window. Can you see me waving?" This book comes from Chapter 2279. When Li Jianhua heard that, she turned around and looked out of the car window. However, they had just passed the traffic light, and the traffic was so heavy that she couldn't see anything. Li Jianhua said, "There are so many cars. I can't see you. Where are you?" On the other side of the phone, Qin Shizao burst out laughing. "Jianhua, you're so cute. Of course you can't see us. I'll hang up first. We're just by the roadside. You'll see us soon." "All right." After hanging up the phone, Li Jianhua turned back to continue talking to Li Mosen. Li Mosen's face was gloomy as he looked out of the car window. After a while, the car stopped by the roadside of the World Trade Square. Li Jianhua grabbed his arm and shook it. "Brother Mosen, we're here." Li Mosen looked down at her and asked in a low voice, "Why didn't you tell me that there were others here?" Li Jianhua shrank her neck and said guiltily, "Ah, you didn't ask." Moreover, she was also afraid that Li Mosen wouldn't come out with her if she said it. What Qin Shizao said on WeChat made sense. She and Quan Jingyi still had more than 2 years to graduate. Could it be that she had been hiding from Quan Jingyi for more than 2 years? Brother Mosen only misunderstood Quan Jingyi. As long as Brother Mosen spent more time with Quan Jingyi, he would know that Quan Jingyi was a good person. At this moment, Qin Shizao's voice suddenly came from not far away. "Jianhua." Li Jianhua and Li Mosen looked up at the same time. Qin Shizao and Quan Jingyi were waving at them not far away. Seeing the two of them, Li Mosen seemed to have guessed it long ago and was not surprised at all. However, his expression also became more and more unsightly. Li Jianhua also waved at them, not daring to look at Li Mosen's expression. However, Li Mosen's gaze was too strong. She couldn't ignore it at all. She could only look up at him pitifully. She saw that Li Mosen pursed his lips and didn't say a word in the end. "Jianhua." Qin Shizao ran over and immediately held Li Jianhua's arm intimately, but she looked at Li Mosen eagerly. Senior Li looked so handsome dressed up today. Qin Shizao's eyes were burning. Perhaps because her eyes were too hot, Li Mosen frowned slightly and looked over. Qin Shizao suddenly panicked. She quickly smiled and said, "Hello, Senior Li." Li Mosen grunted coldly and turned his head away. He did not have a good impression of this girl, not only because of her, but also because of the boy in front of him. Facing Li Mosen's unfriendly gaze, Quan Jingyi acted as if he didn't see it at all. He slightly curled his lips and imitated Qin Shizao's greeting, "Hello, Senior." This senior was nothing to the two girls, but between the two boys, it was extremely provocative. Especially after the confrontation at school last time, Quan Jingyi's senior, at this moment was more like a reminder of the fact that he was about to graduate. Once he graduated, he would no longer be able to control how he interacted with Li Jianhua in school. Li Mosen looked at him expressionlessly, his eyes as cold as ice. Quan Jingyi put his hands in his trouser pockets and looked at him with a calm expression, but his eyes were full of provocation. Just now, Li Jianhua and Qin Shizao didn't notice the strangeness between the two of them, but at this moment, they could already feel the undercurrent surging between the two of them. Li Jianhua nervously grabbed Li Mosen's arm. She was afraid that Li Mosen would make a move. She hurriedly walked up and stood between them. "The weather is so good today, haha." Chapter 2280. Quan Jingyi raised his eyebrows, looked up at the sky and said, "It's pretty good. Let's go." Li Jianhua looked up at Li Mosen worriedly. She suddenly regretted doing so. Li Mosen's gloomy expression disappeared. He asked her as usual, "Where are you going to play?" Before Li Jianhua could speak, Qin Shizao had already answered. "Jeannie's friend opened a bar. Jeannie said he wanted to take us to play." Li Mosen looked up. Qin Shizao seemed to know what he was going to say. She immediately smiled and said, Senior Li, don't worry. The environment of the bar is very good. We're just going to sit. We don't have to drink. She thought that Li Mosen would refuse, but this time, Li Mosen was more relaxed and calm than usual. He pulled out his arm that was grabbed by Li Jianyue, put his hands in his trouser pockets and said, Let's go. Li Jianyue looked at her hands blankly. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed by someone. She was extremely sad. Was Brother Mosen angry with her? The location of the bar was 2 streets away from the World Trade Square. Although it was daytime and morning, there were quite a lot of people because it was Sunday. Quan Jingyi's friends were already waiting in the bar. After the 4 of them arrived, the boss arranged seats for them. The bar had just opened. The environment in the bar was very good. However, because it was daytime, there was only a folk singer singing softly with a guitar. The 4 of them sat not far from the stage. After sitting down, Li Mosen seemed to be attracted by the folk singer singing and focused on the singer singing on the stage. Li Jianyue was in a bad mood and was not as active as before. She sat beside Li Mosen and drank her drink. Quan Jingyi, who was sitting opposite, also drank his drink silently, but his eyes were fixed on the dejected Li Jianyue. Qin Shizao, who was sitting next to Quan Jingyi, was also staring at Li Mosen and Li Jianyue. But when she saw Li Mosen's expression, her heart fell into a bottomless abyss. Now, anyone with a discerning eye could see that Li Mosen was angry with Li Jianyue. But his current appearance was clearly a reaction after being jealous. Could siblings be jealous like lovers? Qin Shizao suddenly thought of what she had heard about Li Mosen's background. He didn't seem to have any blood relationship with Li Jianyue. How could siblings who were not related by blood be called siblings? Just then Li Mosen, who was watching the performance, suddenly stood up. Li Jianyue looked up at him reflexively. Brother Mosen, where are you going? Li Mosen looked down at her, then looked up at Quan Jingyi. His blue eyes were unusually indifferent. Go to the bathroom. After that, he left his seat and walked towards the bathroom. When Li Mosen walked around the corner, Quan Jingyi also stood up and said, You 2 play first. I'll go to the bathroom too. He then followed Li Mosen. Li Jianyue's heart immediately tensed up when she saw the 2 of them moving one after the other. She stood up and wanted to follow them, but Qin Shizao reached out to hold her back and said with a smile, Jianyue, don't follow them. Since there is a misunderstanding between them, we have to find a suitable occasion to resolve it. The 2 of us will listen to Jingyi and play here. Li Jianyue blinked and asked, Can I do that? Of course. But Qin Shizao put down the drink in her hand and stood up to sit beside Li Jianyue. She whispered, I think Senior Li is so strange. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2281. Li Jianyue asked in confusion, What's so strange about Brother Mosen? Qin Shizao smiled and said, I just feel that something is strange. I have some doubts in my heart. Jianyue, you can't be angry when I say it. Qin Shizao's words were mysterious, and Li Jianyue's curiosity was aroused. She nodded and said okay. Qin Shizao tilted her head and whispered into her ear, Don't you think it's strange that Senior Li hates Jingyi for no reason? Li Jianyue said without hesitation, Because Quan Jingyi has a bad reputation in school. Not only Brother Mosen, but others also have a big misunderstanding about him. I don't think so. Qin Shizao shook her head. She sat up straight and let out a sigh. As if she had gathered a lot of courage, she said, Actually, I seem to know a little bit of the inside story. Li Jianyue's eyes widened. What inside story? Qin Shizao winked and smiled awkwardly. When Jingyi was your deskmate, Senior Li once threatened Jingyi not to affect your studies. You should know Jingyi's personality. He hates being threatened the most, so he said some very unpleasant words and offended Senior Li. Senior Li privately caused trouble for Jingyi. But at that time, Jingyi didn't have a good relationship with you. Later, after he got along well with you, Jingyi decided to ignore Senior Li's hostility towards him. I thought that since it had been so long, Senior Li wouldn't cause trouble for Jingyi anymore. I didn't expect him to still hate Jingyi so much now. After saying that, Qin Shizao looked at Li Jianyue's incredulous expression and asked, "Think about it carefully. When Senior Li was with you, the first time he saw Jingyi, did he show that he was very unfriendly to him? Brother Mosen isn't such a person." Li Jianyue stood up and said angrily, "Don't talk nonsense." Ever since she was young, Li Mosen had always been a gentle brother in Li Jianyue's heart. No matter what she did wrong, Brother Mosen would comfort her and tolerate her. She had been in school for so long, but she had never seen Brother Mosen make trouble for her classmates. Qin Shizao stood up with embarrassment and held Li Jianyue's hand. She said, "I just made a guess based on what happened between the two of them before. Senior Li hates Jingyi so much now. It's probably because of what happened before. I won't." Li Jianyue couldn't stand listening to others slandering Li Mosen. Her fair face tensed up and she said very seriously, "Shizao, we are friends now, but you can't slander Brother Mosen like this. I don't know Senior Li well enough. If I'm wrong, I apologize to you first." Qin Shizao held Li Jianyue's hand tightly and said with a worried face, "Actually, I don't want to say these things to you. Jingyi told me yesterday not to say so much to you. But after I saw how cold Senior Li was to you just now, I still felt that I had to tell you, because we are friends." The more Qin Shizao spoke, the more mysterious it became. When Li Jianyue was about to stop her again, Qin Shizao said again, "Actually, I suspect that Senior Li likes you." Li Jianyue said matter-of-factly, "Of course Brother Mosen likes me. We are family. I'm not talking about that kind of like." Qin Shizao said awkwardly and ambiguously, "It's between a man and a woman." Bookmark for easier reading. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.